California.
California. Okay, yeah, I got them right. Holy
you got
shit.
it, dude. Yeah.
All right, well, give us a little update here, and then I'll let the rest of the crew in.
My Instagram posts are annoying just enough that everyone, even the Canadians, can focus on the locations. I always feel bad doing the posting and posting some of the same stuff, but it's amazing how much I learned that I have to repost for everyone to see it, because I'll still get people like, oh, is that happening? I'm like, man, I've been posting it on that. So anyways, thank you, Marcus, and welcome everybody to Hash Church. It's always a pleasure for me to be on here because I was a big fan and I think I've watched every episode of 1.0 and many of them multiple times. So yeah, this is it's Hash Church 4.0, and this is the fourth time we will be in Humboldt doing the Science of Regenerative Cannabis Cultivation Conference. And I'm quite honored, to be honest, and I'm very excited. You know, the time spent not seeing people during this pandemic has been hard for everyone, and so for me, this is kind of my first time getting out, and I think it will be for a lot of folks, and so it's just going to come with a lot of excitement, a lot of good feelings, and you know, it's a pretty cool deal. And so yeah, we're going to invite some of the other speakers on, and we're just going to kind of wrap it up, you know, about what we do, what the show is. Like Marcus said, I put it on. It's kind of an intense show, but also low key in the same way. We don't hype it up. There's not any sponsorships or tables or boothing or things being sold, albeit some people might sell some seeds here and there, but it's nothing. It's not a show. It's not a profit-driven thing. Some of the speakers do have products or brands that they are associated with, but we ask them not to pump them up, and to really be about education. And so it kind of, the tickets are $450, and I always feel really bad because it's a chunk of money, but in reality, it is such a value, and that you are paying for the speakers to be there and to interact with these speakers. And so today you'll get a little taste of some of the quality of folks we have. Like I said, it's quite humbling for me to get to spend time with each and every one of these folks. I learned so much from them. Kevin Jodrey, Chris Trump, Suzanne Wainwright, Dr. Elaine Ingham, Steve Potenponic, Steve Reisner, Eric Branstead from Light Depth Solutions is the greenhouse guru, Dragonfly Earth Medicine. Although they won't be able to join us in this season's tour, they've been, a vital part of the deal for all, the years that we've been doing it, and their huge support. So it's a real heady crew, and I asked them to spend time there. They don't just come up and do their lecture and bounce out. I get them two hotel nights, and so 2 or 3 hotel nights, sometimes the whole thing if they want to stay. And so you'll be able to smoke it up with Eric and with Kevin for sure, and they'll be around, and you can chop it up with these guys and get real connection, and it ends up going beyond that for most folks. There's a lot of folks in our community that I'm in contact with, at least, that have come to these conferences and made some good connections and started businesses and seed companies. And yeah, so I'm just kind of going on, but it's just kind of trying to set the tone and the feel. And then when you get to hear these guys speak, a lot of us, there's season coming on. Season is like the ground level help with me. I don't have to shout it. She doesn't have a title. It's just, she helps me put it on in Humboldt. She does all the stuff on the ground. She gets the thing organized, the location and the food. And in the past, she's done all the cooking for 200 people. It's been crazy. Hi, Season.
How are you? Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Let me see if I could get some video going. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for coming on. I see Steve's in here, and Steensland's in here, and Branstead. I'm so focused on Humboldt that I keep forgetting that Josh was going to be with us for the rest of the tour. It's going to be cool. So we're stoked to have you here, bro.
Dude, I love what you just said, and it was very reminiscent of Hash Church, where you were kind of like, and I didn't know this about the conference, to be honest, about how it's not really like, don't come and promote yourself overly, come and just promote your knowledge. And I absolutely love that. And I get that, the way the world turns and the way we hustle and we make our money is by promoting ourselves. selling our products and doing all of that. But there really is something to say about maintaining the integrity of the information. I've always felt the same way about Hash Church, to not monetize it, specifically because I felt like it would affect the integrity of the information that we were sharing. And the minute you put that filter of kind of monetization, sometimes that people are, we just did it with Hash Church this last month in Los Angeles. It was the first one we ever threw where we allowed some sponsorships, and we changed it up a little bit, just trying to grow it a little bit. But I got to say, man, I appreciate that about your conference. That's on point.
Thanks, man. Yeah, it's not that I'm not trying to make money, but I want to do that in other ways. And so I feel that other speakers can speak for themselves, but I feel like folks have got recognition in this that has kind of let them make money in their own sideways, and it's if anything, it's just been a validation of to the community, so I'm really grateful that I can do it and be a part of it. And, and actually people buy my seeds because of the exposure. So it's a blessing that way too,
I'm having minor technical difficulties. I see on YouTube, the link is going. It says it's recording. There's 157 people watching, but it's really just me, Joshua, and Potent Tonics on the screen. And I can't see any of the other people. So I'll just be in the background trying to make sure this all works, and you guys do your thing.
There she is. Hey, Season. Well, let's introduce who we got here. Eric, are you with us? I see your logo.
Yeah. Hey, how's it going?
What's up, bro? This is Eric
Right
Branstead. Most of you guys know Eric. He's been on Hash Church a bajillion times and travels the world speaking. And you're doing so much stuff, man. We haven't even connected for a while. So why don't you just tell us what you've been up to last 2 years? Is that weird?
Yeah, sure. No, that's cool. It's been a whirlwind. I haven't caught up with a lot of people. Everybody's been pretty busy one way or the other. And the last years too, I guess, with the way the world's been going, it's been harder to connect in some cases. But nevertheless, after leaving the greenhouse company 3 years ago, I started my own company called Greenhouse Advisory Group, and I just been consulting. I took a little job with a distribution company right out of the gate, doing procurement just to try to kind of keep some things going while I was starting my company. And I did that for a year and a half, running around the hills of Humboldt, actually sleeping in tents and trying to find trim and flour and stuff for the distribution companies. And it was actually super fun, but it was pretty hardcore at the same time. And then March of 2020, my consulting company really took off, and I've been busy ever since. And it's been cool. I don't work in California as much anymore. I think because of the market tanking and certain things, people are laying people off more than they're hiring anyone. So I've kind of been fortunate to stay busy in some other states and learning a lot along the way. I got to say that, as much as I'm there to help, I feel like I'm getting to learn so much at the same time that it's pretty rewarding on that part.
You're muted.
Are you muted?
Oh, I was going to say, maybe on that note, what's maybe an interesting grow or technique that you've come across that you weren't seeing, in Cali?
That's a good question. The techniques are all over the place. You kind of see that even in Cali. It's hard to go to one farm and them doing exactly the same thing. Everybody does something a little bit different. But what I would say that I'd see difference in other states than I see in Cali is the equipment, like the bells and whistles or the fancy stuff that people throw at these greenhouses. And I think in some cases it's because the price of cannabis is worth more in other states. So the cost of production, I guess, can be more. And so the willingness to throw more equipment and stuff at these greenhouses is increased. And so it doesn't necessarily, in my opinion, make them run better or better greenhouses in a lot of ways. They can kind of be a little bit more of a headache. But man, I've seen more crazy fancy equipment and dehumidifiers and certain things that I haven't seen in California before, because people decided to go, I guess, crazy in some of these other states.
Are you enjoying that? Because like when I first kind of tuned into you, you were the guy who was saying like, no, let's knock some of this equipment out of here and try to use natural airflow and be wise about this, you know, the environment we're in. And I mean, how do you feel about all? Are you welcoming the technology a little bit, or are you still kind of cutting some of it out?
Well, it's one of those things where, you know, when I show up, it's either I try to bring, earn the paycheck or bring the value that I can by trying to make things work rather than, you know, saying none of this is going to work and this is the way I would do things or whatever. I try to incorporate what I like and understand and what I believe works best with whatever system there is. And, at the end of the day, sometimes trying to dial in these things and work with what they got has been the challenge for me to kind of learn about all these things and then how to make it work right. Because again, I come from the idea of supportive environments. A lot of people have this controlled environment that they still carry around. Everybody wants a controlled environment. And I still don't see greenhouses as being as controlled of an environment as say an indoor. An indoor is a little bit more controllable, 365, 24/7. But when it comes to greenhouses, I mean, shoot, in the middle of the summer, it gets really hot and not all of them cool down like you want them to. And so greenhouses really are more of a controlled environment, in my opinion, in the wintertime. And the summer comes and yeah, you have all these pieces of the puzzle, but how do you create the best support system? Because in my mind, the control thing really kind of goes out the window because there's really not any control. It's like getting these systems to do the best they can to reach the closest to the parameters that we want, which isn't really control. It's like, hopes and dreams. And like I said, if you don't have the right support system in there, all that control stuff doesn't necessarily work. And then dialing it all in to make it work together is another difficult part. So for me, it's fun. I like go, wow, what is this place going to have here? In the next greenhouse, wow, what is this place going to have here? And a lot of times I wonder who signed off on this shit and how is there no liability for some of these companies? I don't know, but it's definitely eye-opening.
So all the different grow styles, greenhouse, indoor, growing controlled greenhouse in the winter, what are you setting up if you have an unlimited budget for a personal grow?
Well, I mean, my personal grow, I like beds. So, organic living soil, raised beds is how I still grow my personal. And if you were going into the commercial space, what I've been learning and working with at scale is some more of the growers that do an organic approach with dosatrons and like 3-gallon pots. And so, at scale, one of the reasons that people kind of start to shy away from the organics is, one, the cost, but two is the delivery system and the ability to not have clogged emitters and dosatrons or injectors and things that don't clog up as well. And so it's been a real fine line to find the right, products and stuff to work into these systems. And so I've seen a lot of good things with a couple of special farmers with, 3-gallon pots on a really good organic system that I don't see everywhere else. And it's starting to work and I'm starting to notice its scalability and things like that. And so with my travels and all these big farms and all this other stuff, it's surprising. A lot of people strive or wish for organics, but it really comes down to sometimes A, the cost, and B, the deliverability of everything and to make it work right consistently. And so some of the farmers that I've seen being able to pull that off lately have been in the game for like 25 years and they've done everything under the sun and they've kind of come to this place and I'm like all over it going, whoa, what are we doing here? Like, I want to check this out a little bit because it's really hard to take a salt farm and convert them to beds, but it's easier to take their 2 or 3-gallon pots and start to trickle in some type of an organic approach or even trial to have them do so that they can sort it out and see if it's worth, going into.
What's up, Kev? Cool, man. Mr. Steensen, are you with us? I'm just going to kind of introduce everybody and go through it.
I sure am. How's it going?
Good, man. How you doing?
I'm doing good.
Are you in the grow room? Pretty good, man. You do looks like you're back at home.
Back at home, yep. Been back and forth, the East Coast, West Coast. Every month I spend about a week over on the East Coast with Ohio Fire Factory, and I've got a new client over there. So I've been on planes lots.
So you have a client and the Ohio Factory. You got two things going. Yeah, yeah. You want to tell us about the Ohio Fire Factory?
Yeah, sure. So a year and a half ago or so, some of my old Marine brothers and I'm a Marine Corps veteran, for those of you that didn't know. And we get together every year and have a reunion and just kind of hang out and shoot the shit and catch up. And a couple of my brothers had expressed interest. This was right during the 2019 season when I was doing the 100-acre hemp grow, and was talking to them about it and was very excited, and also had the stuff going on in Suriname. And so they had kind of expressed interest in, doing something together. And, I just kind of laughed it off as a, oh, that would be really cool, but it'll never happen type of situation. And then as we kept talking, the idea really started to consolidate and condense into reality. And before we know it, we were actually, putting plans together to do an indoor facility there in Ohio. One of my partners owns the building outright, and had a whole half of the building that was kind of being leased to somebody else. And he was like, I'll kick them out and let's do this thing, And so, it slowly became a reality. And we're in the middle of our first cycle of our first phase of a build out. It's eventually going to be about 100 lighter. It's going to be all indoor, and, just cultivating the way I've been cultivating over the years with just very minimal inputs, focusing on Dr. Elaine Ingham's kind of soil food web, biologically complete compost as being the main vehicle that kind of drives our fertility. That's kind of what I want to be talking about too. Unfortunately, I really wish I could have made it to the Humboldt. I was just priorly committed that weekend, and there was no budge there. So I'm really bummed, because I know a lot of my friends and colleagues are going to be at the Humboldt get together. But the other three I'm open and available for. So that's really kind of one of the things that I wanted to talk about, was just to share my experience and what I've learned from the last time, because I haven't been very active on YouTube. I pretty much just don't do anything on YouTube anymore. So I haven't been as much of an open book as I have in the past with what's going on with me. And so I think this is a really good opportunity to share what I've learned over the years, what I picked up from Dr. Elaine's foundation course material, how that changed my perspective in regards to chemistry and fertility, as related to, and how much more important biology is in that scenario than chemistry necessarily. So, and there's some interesting anecdotal evidence that we had found from our 2019 grow, and we're going to be pushing forward in this indoor living soil space with a heavy focus on biology being the main driving factor to the plant's fertility. And so we're going to document that with chemistry analysis and plant sap and tissue analysis, as well as the biological monitoring and analysis as well. And just hopefully in a few years, we'll have a lot of really good data to present and to discuss, along the veins, doing in cannabis, kind of what John Kemp is doing in main ag and big ag. They've got some really interesting data that's repeatable, that points to, say, a soybean field. They're taking a chemistry analysis of the soil before planting, and let's say there's this arbitrary 130 units or 120 units of nitrogen available. They plant their soybeans or whatever their crop is, and the crop uses 130 units of nitrogen, and then they retest at the end of the year, and the soil has the same 120 units of nitrogen that it had to begin with. And so if we think about biology and our soil and our parent material as kind of an inexhaustible resource and a mine for the NPK and trace that kind of any crop needs, then we can really start having discussions about the importance of biology and that interaction with the plant. And so that's kind of what I'm hoping to have a discussion with folks when we meet
Dope,
up.
dude. I mean, every time I pop on your lives on Instagram, you're doing some cool experiments. I watched you compost through the spring and summer last year. And at the Ohio Fire Factory, are you taking the same approach as in like a water kind of only approach where you're compost based, no compost teas?
Well, extracts, compost
Extracts.
extract. So
Okay.
we're not gonna, the only time we would do the actual brewed tea would be if we were doing a foliar application. And right now that's just kind of not in our regimen. Like we're really keeping to that very simplistic approach. We do have a very simple kind of IPM regimen, that's kelp and aloe foliar with, enzymatics, or really kind of like in the mountain organic stuff. It's a really nice product that's kind of pre-formulated and works for us. But yeah, everything is going to be very much the same kind of water only approach. Any kind of biology addition that's going to happen will happen in between cycles. So once cash crop is in, nothing but water is the ultimate goal. I think in this first and second cycle, we are going to be doing some compost extracts mid-cycle, just because it's biology isn't at the levels that we would necessarily want right off the bat. And so we're just trying to kickstart those. The biggest problem is if you're not making your own compost, you're pretty much buying reduced waste compost, which is not going to have a lot of that, a lot of the protozoa and the things that you need to really kind of cycle nutrients and mine those nutrients from your parent material in your soil. So we're implementing our own composting program at Fire Factory, and anybody that I talk to or work with, I really kind of encouraging them to, implement these kind of composting programs in place that are really going to afford you the ability to, generate your own biology reserves that you can use at your facility or your home grow.
Are you doing the composting indoors as well?
No, not necessarily. I think what we're going to do at Fire Factory is we're going to just build a little kind of a pole barn type open-sided pole barn, and we're going to do the bulk of our composting in the spring and summer, and then store it through the winter. So we're just going to kind of do mad dash when it's nice, warm, and not have to deal with the cold. As you can imagine, Ohio is pretty chilly, and I'm not interested in composting indoors necessarily. So I think we're just we have plenty of space outside of the facility to, there's even like a big concrete slab that we're going to end up using, because we're pretty close to a river, and I know that the EPA gets a little funny when you start composting near water sources. So we're fortunate we've got the slab to work on, and we're just going to kind of leverage that.
So you said you're going to build up to 100 lights. What's your first phase right now? What size is it? A 20?
Right now we're at 28 lights. So 28 lights, 14 beds, and that's the most recent pictures you've seen. If you've seen on Instagram, that's kind of where we're at. In my typical fashion, we kind of overgrew it a little bit, but I've only been able to be there 1 week out of the month, and my two partners have zero cultivation experience. And when I say zero, I mean fucking zero. One of them's an electrician by trade, owns his own business, contractor, and the other guy is runs a very successful kind of finished carpentry business where he goes in and does the finished carpentry for hospitals and VAs, and I mean he's booked out till 2026. The guy's a whiz and really a really great micromanager. So I've really found over the years to find people in what the talents are in your team, and even if they're kind of conflicting with your personality, like I am not a micromanager. I mean, I'm the furthest thing from a micromanager, but you kind of need somebody on the team who has those skills, who has that attention to detail, to really kind of push the projects through. And so he's been a huge benefit in that regard. And I've really learned a lot from him in the little bit of time that we've been working together, in this capacity. We've known each other for years, but you really don't really know somebody until you move in together or start a business together, it's pretty much a marriage. Yeah.
Well, you guys served together, so you had,
yep.
That's maybe a little bit more than you would have with a normal friend.
Yeah, because we can cut through the bullshit.
Right.
There's always going to be times where there's a potential headbutting situation, or you have kind of conflicting ideologies on how to approach things. And the fact that we have this history together where we're really comfortable, like family, calling each other out or being like, hey, that's fucking stupid. I don't agree with that, or I don't understand. And we don't really let feelings get in the way, which helps a lot at kind of keeping things moving forward and not stagnating. Communication in the team, or lack thereof, is what can make or break a business in most circumstances.
Well, fuck yeah, man. Wish you
two things
best.
to add. Sorry to cut you off there, Josh.
No.
Two things to add. We are at our limit for Josh's. We can't have any more in the room. We're at 3 now. And then I also wanted to say that someone in the chat, while you were talking about micromanagers, said microbe managers at manager. And I thought that was funny. So
yeah, that sounds like a good t-shirt in the works.
That's an Instagram account that someone's making right now.
Yeah.
Right on, man. Well, I'm gonna move on and just kind of keep introducing folks. Kevin Jodry, what's up, man?
Good. How you doing?
Most folks know you. You've been on here maybe once or twice before. I don't know, a couple times. No,
I'm a virgin.
A virgin house
church. Yeah, first time on the show.
It's a cool show, dude. Marcus has been doing this for I don't know how many years.
I'm familiar. I'm familiar with it. No, it's legendary. It's my first time on the platform.
Well, welcome. I'm sure everyone's excited to see you. You kind of don't need a lot of introduction. Most folks know you, and I appreciate knowing you, and I appreciate everything you've done to promote and be a part of this conference and support it. And what have you been up to last couple of years? Do you want to share with folks real briefly what you're up to?
Yeah, I've been doing a lot of different work. It's funny being like on the Regen group, I'm the least qualified to be on the panel. But when it comes time to hustle and move my feet, that's something I can do well. And what I've been working on is really global work. I mean, I'm in I think 5 different countries right now. So I have operations in 5 countries that I'm owner of. So I went global in cannabis because California cannabis is such a fucking disaster that I didn't want to die in it mentally. You can't struggle indefinitely. And I'm someone who likes struggle, but you can't struggle indefinitely without diminishing your energy. And you end up getting bitter and burned out. And so what I did is I started just trying to understand better, like, how do I keep myself mentally fresh? And it's really allowing yourself to go and work all over the planet where there's things that are possible. And so I've been hell excited about that because it's awesome to work globally. And what I worked on locally, like in Humboldt, was we worked really on trying to drive attention to the Appalachian program and regenerative type agriculture. And so I came up with a concept that I was able to work with Cookies on, where I said, hey, we should cover Humboldt Appalachians. We should bring in this information. I wrote the press. We laid out the piece, and we'll break 5 million views this week. So 5 million views on a 30-minute video is not bad. So what I know is my marketing is on point. And that's what I've been working on, is really trying to drive awareness and attention to the people who do the work, because that's not where they shine. They shine in what they do, which is regenerative ag, which is really extremely time and labor intensive. So it doesn't allow you the opportunity to do all the other stuff. And we worked on the development of the Gangia. So the Gangia I came up with like 8 years ago. I sold it to Green Flower, and it's been an incredible program. And it's the same situation. It's how do you drive attention to craft producers? And it's not even just craft producers, it's all producers, because I don't have a beef with big operations. It's just what it is. If you don't like big operations, tell me you fucking walk to work every day and I'll listen to you. But if you jump in a car, then I don't want to hear your shit. So it's really about trying to do the best job you can and to bring attention to cannabis and cultivation in general. It's not just for little, it's for all. Because what happens is when you start to polarize the conversation, especially in the United States, anytime you point at someone being not good or you're complaining, Americans look at it like you're a loser. And so what happens is it's the opposite effect. The more you cry about getting the shit kicked out of you, the more people believe you get the shit kicked out of you. And so for me, I don't play that game. You never fucking see me cry or shed a goddamn tear since you've known me, because I know where I'm from. I know that no one gives a shit. What we have to do is highlight the positive. And what you have to do is get people enthused and caught up in what we do, which is really the beauty of agricultural appreciation at any level. And so that's what I've been really working on. I mean, I work on business development around the world, but in my area, it's strictly been to drive attention to the craft situation by using Humboldt. So we brought all the Gangia into Humboldt County. So Humboldt is where all the education happens, which is a fucking inconvenience for everyone, really, because it's, you know, it's up the hill. But what it does, it allows the students to come in. It lets me introduce them to craft cultivators in the area. It lets them tour craft farms. And the impact has been excellent on a lot of these farmers because we've been able to highlight their product. And all of a sudden, when all your product sells out, you're kind of enthused about the program. And so what you have is buy-in when there's results. And that's really all I care about. I mean, fuck, I'm 55 years old. I've been in the game my whole life. What I want to see is positive stuff come forward, or otherwise what we end up having is just a decimation of agricultural appreciation by virtue of the fact that you can't get any type of traction in sales. And so when it comes right down to it, man, it's really, can you sell the flower you make, and how do you get people to be aware of it, and how do you drive that information? And that's really what I've been doing. I mean, I get so much shit going on. You know me, I'm fucking never stop moving. But that's really what I'm trying to do.
Can you explain the Gangia program a little bit more? Because I think I didn't understand at first. And you know, what I now understand, I think it's really cool. And it has the potential to really help us all move our product, you know, and in the way that you guys are developing the students to come out and do the grading system and kind of create a scale. Can you explain that a little bit?
Yeah, the basis of the Gangia was really common language. And so the problem is that we all use different terminology. It's like the biblical of Babel, where everyone's talking a different language and no one has any ability to make any type of progress. And so with the Gangia, it was really trying to determine, how does one teach people how to evaluate cannabis? And then how do you give them some historical background on cannabis so they can understand really where we came from? We're really stealing everything we know from the past, right? And so how do you take some of that information and bring it into the current? And then how do you teach people how to look at cannabis and give them an evaluation process that is pretty fucking thorough? And so the beauty of the Gangia was that it wasn't one person. I think there was like 18 of us that got together. And I want to say we spent almost like 7,000 man hours combined over a 2-year period to create it. The arguments, the wars over what we were looking at and what's graded and what's noted and what's important and what's the weight. It was hysterical because all of us were Korea. So we're blasting on each other constantly to determine what's really something that we can agree on that we believe is valid. And what it did is it gave us a really, really thorough evaluation process, which allows you to be able to compare apples to apples. And my goal was two. It was to identify the best, which I always know comes out of craft, and to identify the value, which comes out of commercial, because the commercial operation should be able to sell at a cheaper price point. And those two are the only 2 points I really care about. What's the best quality flower, and what's the stuff that's affordable for people who don't have the budget. So the masses need to know where the value is. And those that want to experience really premium cannabis need to know how do you come to that conclusion. And so it's been a fantastic experience because the industry's in such disarray, but the students have such hope for their future that it's infectious. And so when you get to be an instructor to help people work on their goals of moving into this new industry, not so much from the old industry, but the new industry, and they're trying to bring such a heartfelt drive, oh, fuck, it couldn't be a better time. You know, and the diversity of it's incredible. And the part that I'll be honest, the part I like most is that we have probably right now with Gangia graduates, I bet there's almost $2.8 billion in flower sold under Gangia graduate lead buyers. So some of the largest MSOs in the country are graduates of the program. And what that means is that those people who graduated that program are now pretty fucking aware of what good quality is. And when you're controlling $2.8 billion in total sales in the United States, because I added it all up myself. I just said, like, all you people are these heads of these massive companies. And what it does, it allows them to be able to start bringing forth smaller cultivators, smaller producers, and highlight them because they know that is the upper shelf. They learned it at the meeting. What we're able to do is we're able to bring these people into the building, but we're able to bring in, because it's local, I can bring in local farmers. So Season needs to get your ass over there. We're going to get you in the room, Season. I'd love to have you come by and meet the students. It'd be awesome. Because that's what I do is I just bring locals in that can speak to them. And then we bring in all kinds of weird herb that no one's ever consumed, shit that's not on the market, stuff that we like to fuck around with. And so it lets people really get to experience the fringes of cannabis in a way they normally don't. And it allows them to see the bigger picture. And they also get the emotional connection to the cultivators because they get to meet them. They get to travel to the farms. And it starts to personalize that sale. And so to me, you know, the Gangia it's about cannabis evaluation and appreciation. But for me, it's always about move that fucking weed. Because if you're not moving it, we're all going broke. And I used to get, these people used to bust my balls where they would talk about, I'm on the Regen conference, but they would say that I should be doing my own generative conference because it's what I focus on so much. But I'm like, listen, you want to work, you know, doing what you do what you do. But in cannabis, we need to have intelligent marketing and we need to have a higher level understanding of what makes quality. And that has to be able to be easily explained and driven forward in a way that doesn't go, they're bad, we're good. It's not about you or I, it's about the product. The product has to stand on its own, and we know that it can. It just needs to be highlighted. And I think the Gangia is doing an excellent job with it. And I think that the quality of the student that came through the program, you know how it is. You're going to deal with a couple hundred people in your educational program. There's going to be a couple of fucking wingnuts. They were without question some of the nicest people I've met in fucking years. It couldn't have been nicer people who were so about the new world of cannabis. And so, you know, that's the kind of stuff that really just, it gets me moving because you need all the pieces together. You need to have the development of the land. You need to have the development of your genes. You need to have the development of yourself. And then that has to be showcased and marketed correctly. And most people don't have the ability to market. They really don't. You're spending too much time doing your craft. And so what do? And I think that, you know, with the Gangia, when we brought them all in, you got to see the diversity of who they were, where it was people in every facet of the industry. And their desire was to build a new industry that they could be part of, because most of them were definitely younger than me. So it's a great program, and the feedback's been excellent. And the ramifications for cultivators that got highlighted, it moved their product. And so that's where you start to see the changes because what happens is they all fly into San Francisco, and then I tell them where to go up and down the state to buy products. So when they're coming up the hill, I say, look, these are all the dispensaries that sell craft. Here's some farms that have released some really killer product. I have no money in it. It's not like I'm trying to sell my shit. I'm just pointing out people who have really good product and where you can access it. And what it did was it emptied out their shit. And all of a sudden, when all your gear is being emptied out of dispensaries because you have hundreds of people highlighting your product and posting it and talking about it and consuming it, it allows there to be that spotlight that we need. And it has to be the product that does the talking. It's the product that people have the relationship with ultimately. And so when people get to consume a product from a regen farm, or I would just call it biologically driven, there's a magic to it. And the Gangia students allow that to be seen. So I love it. I really do, man. I love the students.
It's similar to, like, you know, how I got to know you and got to work with all these breeders that, you know, we were bringing in on Sunday when you originally did the breeder program out of the Wonderland Nursery years ago, and you documented it with Shango and put those videos up. All those guys went on and have sold tons of seeds, and I'm sure they were selling lots before, but that was really set a platform for everybody. And like you say, put a spotlight where I could see that, you know, different people were doing different things, and I could align with them to, you know, for what my needs type thing. And that's kind of what one thing that I see that you bring big time to the table in this conference is A, getting the genetics out there, but B, bringing breeders that are getting their genetics out and making the connection with the farmers, you know.
Well, the breeders we dealt with, I used them for years as partners, you know, like they would produce work. I would sift through the work. I would find outliers and say, hey, I want to push this into the system. And then they would get full credit for it. And what it did is it allowed us to then steer business back to them. And when the industry was changing, I realized that maybe, you know, 2% of them were going to move forward because they didn't have industrial assets, which is what you need to have a license to do nursery work to sell into the system. And so I realized that all these people that I worked with were going to get nuked right out of existence. And so what I did is I started doing publicity work for the breeders because I wanted other people to be able to see them on a platform and hopefully be able to work with them in some combined projects where, you know, you could bring them in, they could do work. I didn't want to see them get knocked out of existence because they didn't have what I had, which was infrastructure. And I paid for all that shit. Like all those fucking things, all that stuff was out of the pocket. It wasn't like I'm charging the breeder to be on stage. I paid for all of it as a thank you for all the work we got to do all the years together. And so I still do it now. If you're solid, I'll support you, because what I know is that all of us as a group make a healthy cannabis community. And I'm just grateful that I got to spend, you know, shit, since I was 12, I've been in herbs. So I'm 55. So 43 years of my life I spent here. And if I could be positive in that role, then I'm grateful. That's a full life. So it's the same with what we do here. It's really about, we used to be able to just grow and move herb, but the game changed. And if you're not really, really clear about what you're doing, you're going to get killed. And what I'm seeing is a decimation for the small farmer. And it's shocking, especially in my area where we have such a massive collection of small farmers. And so every single person I know is basically on their hands and knees getting kicked in the fucking face. It doesn't have to continue like this. What we have to do is we have to work in a way where we drive attention to the product, drive attention to the people, and create an attraction to the public that makes them want to play with you. You have to make it fun. It's the Tom Sawyer shit where I'm painting fences and I'm getting people to paint the fucking things with me, not for me, but with me. And that's what gets people involved. People want to be part of things. They want to be involved in our lifestyle. It's just a matter of how do you expose them to it, and how do you How do you frame it? And so I just seem like I found out over the years that I'm good at marketing. And so what I'm trying to do is use the skills that I have to drive attention. And I just got lucky that I was really creative years ago and came up with a lot of different things that we're able to use today as those tools, those vehicles. And it's just, it's an odd position because it's not one that I ever intended to be in. It's just where it kind of evolved because it's the only place that I think that I can make real progress for my community.
Well, we fucking appreciate you, Kev. Big thanks, dude. I want to kind of introduce some of these other guys. I see Nicholas. I didn't expect, man. We got a brief window in internet. The wall open. So you're on mute, man. Yeah, I can't hear you, but welcome, dude. How you doing? You're still on mute. Oh, maybe the window didn't work. maybe I cursed the window. Well, but we'll see if you can come back on. Hey, Chris, how you doing? Are you here with us?
I am here with you. Good to be here.
How you doing, sir?
I'm doing well. Yeah.
Chris is the token natural farmer of the group. And bad, weird, dumb joke. Sorry. You've been with us pretty much every one of these things, except for maybe the first one. Were you at the first one?
Yeah, I think I came into the second one.
The second one.
Yeah, out there in Redway.
So it's super exciting that you're still back with us. You have been in a lot of transition in the last couple of years in your life, and you want to just kind of share what you've been up to?
Yeah. I mainly been working with farmers and food across a bunch of different industries, and some in landscaping, in golf, turf management, big old farm in Iowa, doing corn, soy, alfalfa, wine grapes in Napa. And really for me, what I feel like is a service, I think, to kind of the mission is just finding the parameters of what makes financial sense for farmers in natural farming. We know the tech works, but where are those edges and those places where farmers making a living because this is streamlined in their operation? And so finding that in 1,000 acres of corn and soy and alfalfa has been a interesting journey, and 700 acres of wine grapes. It's not just because natural farming is super cool doesn't mean that those industries already know how to plug it into a massive operation. And so kind of with my background, I felt like that's been kind of the best use of moving this ball forward, use of my time. And so it's been a lot of fun and a lot of challenges, but some really cool success. I hope to interview some of those farmers in the next several months and get that online so we can talk about a lot of those things and just continue to get better at basically returning to tech we used to use a few generations ago. And and then sorry, go ahead.
No, go. I was curious. I've seen a lot of Instagram photos of big IMO piles, and I was curious if you have a tally, maybe how many pounds you've done in a year, or like some sort of, because they're pretty big ones. It's been fun to watch.
Yeah. Truthfully, like before anybody was hashtagging KNF is when I was probably making the most IMO. I was out in Hawaii making it for our farm. And we were making 90,000 pound piles with the right equipment. And, but yeah, no, it's been, I think last year I made yeah, four big old piles, and one of them was 40,000 pounds, one was 20,000 pounds, and I think one ended up at 80,000 pounds. So whatever that adds up to, 1,500 pounds, 150,000 pounds IMO by skid steer. It was good fun, and it's worked really well for the farmers. Has been the kind of the main thing. Right now I'm in Colorado. I think I'm gonna kind of put my head down. We played with that project with the Brinkerhoffs out here, and I feel like what's needed is a little bit of finding those parameters. What works? Here's what we're doing. Here's what didn't work, and here's what's been played with, and here's what's working well, and just really talking about that super publicly, and
Yes.
letting it be a group discussion is, I think, maybe the best service for the industry. And like Kevin said, what is it that puts the spotlight to the product to move the flower, and I think that's something I'm looking forward to learning about this year. And Kevin, appreciate the candid way in which you talk about all things cannabis industry. And wondering what kind of Gangiers we have out here in Colorado. Who's looking for the craft cannabis. But yeah, it was a lot of moving parts last year as far as working with a bunch of different industries, and it was a lot of work, a lot of fun. And this year I'm hoping not to run around quite as much. But yeah, still want to kind of move the ball forward. And I've learned a ton more than I knew a year ago in natural farming. And I feel like that's kind of the point, is that as a international community, we grow in being able to apply this really basic technology. People get into natural farming and they want to get their microscope, and it's super cool and wonderful, and I applaud it. And at the same time, like, this technology is about using like the really inexpensive and simple things to make the food world and medicine world go round. So kind of just honing that in personally and hopefully for the community.
Awesome. I was going to ask about liquid IMO. That's kind of the focus of what you're going to talk about. You want to drop any?
Yeah, it's been fun. Actually, Steve and I have been playing with some of the parameters of producing kind of indigenous fungal predators for carapace insects, and that's been really fun to watch develop. And so that can be applied in a liquid form. That's how I discovered it back when it kind of got on the radar for me. But talking about how versatile that is anywhere you are in the world is definitely something we'll do this year. Getting into how do you cultivate fungi that will chew on all your beetle pests and your various bugs with carapaces, and that's fun because whether you're in the US with a high value crop like cannabis, or struggling with different things, caterpillars in Zimbabwe, like Steve was messing with, you're able to use this technology without a purchase, really just by cultivating nature's tech, which has been that's been a blast, because I think that with that, with kind of an SOP with that for the world, I think we're going to have a pretty effective pest management. We call it IPMO, integrated pest management organisms, and we're I think that's something that could be further developed, but also I think is really ready for any, hobby farmer to apply a great effect. And so that's fun to talk about. Also, just using the technology and resources available to feed plants based on your growing style. Not everybody's producing some really amazing living soil. Some people, that's a struggle. It's winter, they got no time to cultivate their soil, and they're just trying to go in with whatever raw materials they can bring together, and they need to feed their plants. And so natural farming has tools for that, but it's not all kind of laid out in some ready SOP for any different scenario, especially in cannabis with the need to properly feed. So I think talking about what ways you can add to the witch's brew, so to speak, to make it more ready for your product, I think is something we'll get into, kind of the versatility or the adaptability of it. Here's the base model, and what do you need for your farm? So that'll be fun to get into. And just generally the technology isn't about chasing NPK, but at the same time, some people want to use it to just push their newts through the system. And it's like, you can do that. Yes, that's not what this is all about, but it can be done. And there's a right way and a wrong way to do it. There's a way that can create some more pest problems. If you get an imbalance, then there's ways that you can keep a balanced system.
Right. If you're doing tissue sap, again, you're doing sap analysis, then you can make a correction, really quickly with a foliar feed or even a micro soil feed, type thing.
Totally.
So super cool. Well, I think I want to keep going down and get everyone in. Do we have you, Nicholas? Yeah. I think we got you, bro.
Can you hear me?
We can hear you. Welcome.
All right. I'm terrible at this stuff. I'm good. I'm down at our original farm. Turned out I was down here today, so I wanted to chime in. But yeah, I'm excited for the conference, and I'm looking forward to sharing perspective.
What have you been up to the last 2 years? I know you've been putting some seeds out in the market. I've seen. I'm sure you're putting cannabis still into the Oregon market. And what's going on? You guys had a baby. That's been probably a big, huge transition.
Yep.
Congratulations.
Thank you. It's been. I've been learning a lot. Let's just say that. And in terms of the cannabis, we've just been fording ahead with the rec market and trying to hang on to this crazy ride. It's a real challenge. It's definitely a challenge, and there's all this balance between like passion and then feeling like you're starting to get robbed of your passion by just grinding away to try and stay in it for whatever. But the truth is having the license and having the ability to be in a public view has given me a lot of opportunity, and that opportunity to explore genetics through the license is really, it's really given me the office that I needed in order to understand that process a lot more. But my background really, when I stop and reflect on everything right now, because it's such a crazy time, and my background has really been about being in the wilderness and exploring wild places and understanding the earth and its ecosystems. I dedicated years to sea travel by kayak and lake travel by canoe and foot travel through deserts and canyons and living really simply and that's really the grounding component that connected me to cannabis, because I was high as you could be in all those places when I wasn't with students. But having that ability to then explore cannabis and all that it's given to me and all of my connections to those places, has just driven me further down the path. Exploring the commercial side has been a little bit like, it's been a kind of a bummer, to be realistic. You know, it makes me wonder sometimes if I was maybe, you know, just got into something that is just like, I'm not commercially driven. Like, my passion isn't about production and per square foot. And, you know, what I really want to share is passion for the earth and changing systems and not trying to figure out how to squeeze some process into a commercial thing, but rather changing systems, you know, from the ground up and understanding where true health lies. And so the last couple of years has been quite an exploration into health and a reevaluation of what I'm doing. And thank God for the genetic explorations and the time devoted to, you know, observing how things respond to environments, and then asking ourselves, how do we want to relate to the environment? And in going forward in something such as a commercial business, which I think kind of, you know, has its more downsides than upsides, especially if you're coming from a simple existence, is you know, exploring that relationship and then really, you know, remembering the important things that got us to the places that we are, at least for myself, which is nature and the way the cosmic forces display themselves on Earth, and how we receive that energy and how to work with those energies, and exploring the idea that energy is actually a free resource, that we have to be able to interpret it well. And when we think we got to take it, transform it into something, store it in a box and put it into a bunch of metal and then shoot it back out into the world, to me just seems a little bit like, you know, at this point, I don't know if that's the right choice. I don't know if we need to keep scaling our efforts up in production. And I don't know if we need to try and fit into a commercial industry. I almost think it's the commercialization and the industry that has gotten us to these places. So, and then you tack on all the kind of bullshit stuff going on in the government and all that, and just it's you know, I'm not sitting on any real clear direction except for reconnecting to the natural processes to better understand how we can create something with less energy, at least through the perverted system of industry. You know, I'm always like, you know, the more things I package and sell to the market, the more dependent I am on a manufacturing plant to make bags and stickers and you know, and it's hard to see myself wanting to keep doing more than that, or more of that. So, you know, I don't know really what it means. I just want to share perspective and try to get to the heart and soul of what it means to be working in relationship in a healthy way with our planet and our cosmos. So I want to understand that the sun is here to take care of us, and that the water is the most important and complete essence of life, that we have to honor it and not control it. And, you know, I don't want to play God. I want to play participant in a much bigger thing than I can imagine. I don't want to pretend I'm a creator of genetics. I want to understand that we are just shepherds of this, and we, none of us created any of these genetics. You know, these genetics are just us working with nature in a way that helps change things in some way. But so, yeah, you know, I'm kind of at loss for words. I've had a lot of loss. I've had a lot of gain. It's a journey.
You know, we both have the Outward Bound background. We both worked for Outward Bound and kind of shared the similar experience. And it was my experience in nature that really changed me and enlightened me that I wanted to farm. And when I actually got injured, that was like, all right, this is where I'm moving into. And I just, reflecting back on that time, you know, we'd eat these stupid crackers called Bickies. And I'm sure you guys had them down in the South, and they're these highly caloric crackers that we'd eat with every meal, because, you know, we could just pack them. And so we tell this story to the students like on the first day, and it was about the concept of leave no trace. And you know, did you guys do the same thing when the cookie crumbs or the cracker crumbs would come down? You talk about the impacts in the environment of, you know, dropping micro. Did you guys talk about?
We talked about micro trash and we talked about leave no trace stuff, but I don't recall the same crackers and stuff. I was up in Minnesota most of the time.
Yeah, okay. We would use the story of when the kids would eat the crackers and the crumbs would fall to the ground and the kid would just dust off, you know, these, you know, cracker crumbs all over. And we're like, hey, like, think about this. What's going to happen to it was just like a teaching moment. What do you think happens to those cracker crumbs? A mouse will probably eat it, you know? And they're like, all right, cool. Well, what happens when mice have more energy, you know? And like someone like, well, they probably fuck and they probably have some more mice. Like, cool, yep. And we just kind of follow that out until we get to this like thing that like, whoa, my little micro litter here, it really does cause an impact. And it really just kind of set the tone for how we were to be respectfully moving through the wilderness, you know? And, anyways, that kind of has really impacted the way I view gardening too, and the way I just view my impact on the whole situation. And yeah,
I think that you know, a lot of the reasons I kind of left that space was I felt like there was a big disconnection between food and I thought it was always really weird to be traveling around. You know, when you talk about that, I think about like, oh, the mouse probably is going to get cancer now because of the glyphosate. You know, and so like, well, it's probably not going to do a whole lot more reproduction. It might actually render itself infertile. However, I saw there was a big disconnect, and I think my work has everything to do with integration. So I want to get back out into the wilderness, but I don't want to carry bags of crap. You know, I don't want to carry glyphosate drenched cookies and biscuit mix and junk. You know, I want to understand, you know, the environment and the ecosystem. And I want to go to these places. I want to integrate, you know, camping or gardening and I guess it would be more of like, you know, I'm not 100% set that we need to be farmers and production oriented. I think there's an integration piece we all need to understand, that in life, you get stuck doing one thing for too long. I'm like, I always think it's important that everybody knows how to grow food. That doesn't mean everybody has to farm. That means maybe for 10 years in your life, you dedicate yourself to taking care of the community by growing food. And then that service pays you back later because now your kids are doing it. And then you get to eat that food from the people who are farming. But I don't wish upon anybody a lifetime full of farming in this modern day, because you see it, especially from a commercial perspective, is like you just end up down a rabbit hole. Or, you know, like what we got going on in Oregon is you got a bunch of hidden, you got companies that are buying licenses and getting bigger. They're not letting you know who's all who, but they're all connected. They're creating really easy for the dispensary one-stop shop. Like they pull up, they've changed some of the laws around manifests and making it easier for the big guy to come in with everything that one dispensary could need. The intake manager then buys everything they need in that one time, and now they no longer have a budget for anybody else. But it was so much easier with this guy that showed up, and he would take all the product back that didn't sell, and he would, you know, provide you new options. And then so it's like competing with that and being involved in the market helps you realize, wow, from a passion, without something like what Kevin was talking about with is like somebody spearheading an ability to kind of corral some really quality farmers in to a space that just is like, hey man, just do what you do and create what you create. And we got a place for you, you know, to play every component, to be the marketer, to be the, you know, all this stuff that goes on in the chain to get it to the end point. Even though we have some advantages here in Oregon, we're still just being eaten up because we got other people who are so competitive from a capitalist standpoint that they're just making it easier and easier and easier. And then you got the little people who are like, well, I actually need to make more than, you know, $400 on a pound. So how's this going to function when they're offering $200 pounds at endless amounts at any testing result that you could imagine? So, you know, I'm not here to speak about how great the market is, and none of us really are. We're all here to talk about our passion. And I think, you know, the only reason that our farm still exists has everything to do with our ability to produce without stuff. So it's like, you know, you can measure how regenerative you are by how many products you buy. And the least amount that you buy as a product from a store to make your operation exist kind of defines how regenerative you might be. And so if you're not buying any products to grow your cannabis, I would say you're doing a really good job. I don't care if you make a tea over here, if you have gone down some rabbit hole about some indigenous microorganisms, whatever you're doing, if you can do it with the resources from your space in whatever ways, I think, wow, you're able to at least exist in that place if you really want to. And so, you know, we can drop our prices to these places that even the corporate people don't really like, but it doesn't serve us, and it doesn't really get us where we want to get to, which is essentially, you know, I don't want to, I'm not trying to like get crazy rich. I want to own land one day, you know. I'm the owner of our farm. However, it's not like that doesn't come with a whole slew of debt. So, you know, I'm thankful I have access to land. I'm thankful and grateful for having the experience of holding a license, of working with genetics, and being able to do the things that I need to do in that way. But you know, I don't know if any farming pursuit is the one. If you don't already own land, I don't know if you're going to buy your land off of your farming. So, because one, to scale up, the infrastructure costs so much. So, you know, I've thought about vertical integration and taken on another $500,000 in debt and had opportunities. But, you know, it's like, I don't see myself as I go further down this route, ending up in Las Vegas and rubbing elbows with a bunch of people in hot tubs to fucking sell some weed. You know, it's like, it's not my gig. So, I use this time as a way to bank a whole lot of value in seeds. And so, you know, I'm just banking value of what I believe has value, which is something that feeds the future, which is seeds beyond anything else. The thing that holds the most value is our seed banks. It always has been and always will be, at least to anybody who cultivates. Now, there's hunter-gatherers that do an amazing job, hardly with having to do. So that's the thing, that integration piece. We have to like see and understand how to grow things, but we also have to see and understand the landscape. So we don't have to create a separate place for production, but rather we integrate our production into an ecosystem so that we're working with the powers and the forces that are way stronger than we are. And that is, again, the cosmos. The reason we are holding some kind of orbit around a sun is certainly what keeps us capable of breathing and living. So I want to connect with those strong forces so we can stay alive through all the craziness of this perverted reality that humans have created. And a lot of it has to do with patriarchy. A lot of it has to do with industrialism. A lot of it has to do with capitalism and economy and colonialism. Like, these are all the things that have brought us to this point. And at some point, we really got to look at it all, and we really have to change the systems from the bottom up and change our foundation so we can not continue to feed the system we don't believe in, which is what I believe we do the further into business we get. So, you know, I don't know what the answers are. I know that it feels good to watch a sunset still, and I want to always honor that space. I want to be able to go outside and watch the birds with a little boy who's blown away by them, so I can remember the awe of the cosmos and how it is incredible that we are here breathing and living. And I don't want to live in fear of the natural world, like it's coming out to kill us. I don't believe that. I don't believe a lot of the common things that are going around right now. So yeah, I'm here to represent the world.
I share a lot of your sentiments, man. And I you're powerful in the way you share them. So Appreciate you, dude. And I'm glad you're coming down to Humboldt.
I'm excited for that. I look forward to seeing people. You know, it's been a while. I went to the Emerald Cup and what a blast. I mean, it was just not necessarily like a blast of pure joy and fun, but like a blast of reality now, post when I was doing it before. So
right.
I just like hanging out with people sometimes, you know. It's not all the time, but I do enjoy getting together with people and sharing perspectives. So
100%. Well, thanks for popping on.
Yeah.
I want to introduce Season, the woman behind the Humboldt Conference. She is she, like I was saying earlier, she used to do all the cooking for like 2 meals a day for 3 days for 200 people. You're amazing, Season. And you also run a farm, and you have a cooperative that you're working on, and you do a bunch of community work in Humboldt. And I'm really impressed with all that you do and the service that you do to your local and broader community. So
yeah, it's been pretty cool to have a front seat to watch all this develop, and hearing Kevin speak about the Gangia program. I've been able to host a lot of those students here on the farm through my camping and hip camp, and hearing Nick say, like, having the integration, I really feel lucky to just be able to serve this community with a really tiny, tiny farm. I scaled down when all this happened, and I got way, 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 way smaller, sold off a farm. And I feel like, I'm just really lucky to be able to participate in this level and be on Hash Church with you guys. And it is a great, great, great experience and a great honor to be able to just share my garden with so many people. Yeah. This right now, I'm just going through building a bathroom with the trellis program funds, and I've gotten equity grants. And for me, I feel really supported by the planning department. I feel supported by the county, and it's like, that's way different than what most people are thinking. And I just have to be really, really grateful to be able to as myself, just one person on this farm. I have 3,000 square feet. And, Nick was saying you can measure your regenerative by the products you buy. And it's like, I rarely buy anything. So I feel pretty good about that.
No, 100%. You have a beautiful, beautiful garden, and it's cool the way you work through and turn your shop into, like, you're turning it into a community space. And she's right across the 2-minute drive from the Richardson Grove RV park where we have the conference, right by One Log, and really close to Benbow, and kind of where, like Kev was saying, where he does the Gangia. But you're going to be able to do the goal is to do courses, like little classes, mini classes, and education, and that you can also use that facility for what else? I think farmers to do processing a little bit.
It's a model that's not really accessible right now. And it's nice to hear that the Economic Development Department really likes the model, but really the way that space is licensed, it's hard to get other people to come in and use it unless we have this cooperative model. And it's just a lot of tiny, tiny, tiny steps. For me to build this bathroom, I have to get my old septic permit signed off. And, yesterday I was digging holes for 5 feet deep, just working on that. I mean, it's just a ton of tiny, tiny steps. And I do feel supported, and it does give me inspiration to keep moving forward. But at the same time, it is true. It's like, how much more can I take on? It does take community support. And I do feel like I'm in a really great position, and a great place, and I'm involved in the right things. So I just have to keep, taking the baby steps and not expecting too much to happen at once, and just be grateful for the opportunity and the space that I've created and the interest that there is. I wish more farmers had the community or the consumer outreach that I have, because for me, I see that there are people valuing craft and they don't know how to identify it. And just having a place where they feel comfortable with the vernacular and the language, and and I can promote other brands. There's not very many farms that are out there promoting multiple other brands, on a weekly basis. And so I feel really lucky to just have, that personal interaction in a place where people can have access to the plant in such a natural way. It is more of a garden and less of a production zone. And I think that's really different on what they see when they go on a cannabis tour. So, I mean, I just feel lucky to be able to offer something different and so sweet. You know, people often tell me like, you're the last person still having fun growing weed. And it's because it is just me in my garden. I had a huge staff, and it was like, you know, the pressure that I had before, that wasn't as fun. It was organic and it was in native soil, but it was high production and a lot of pressure. And I just feel really lucky. You know, I get to walk out. Kevin was saying, if you have to drive to work, I'm thinking, man, I just walk out my door. You know, I don't even have to walk very far. It's like, you know, just a few hundred feet away. So yeah, when I hear people speak about it, I feel like, wow, I get to live that. And I just feel really lucky.
Yeah, hell yeah. Josh and Kelly, how are you guys doing?
Feeling super good, thank you.
Yeah.
Big love to everyone, huge respect.
Yeah.
Everyone knows you guys. You guys are Hash Church regulars, and you've been on the tour with the Regen tour, and unfortunately that doesn't, maybe if things change, but we're gonna miss you guys this year, just the way the laws are laying down and the government shit, and I'm really sad about that. But you guys have been up to a lot of cool stuff on your farm during this. I've been watching your Instagram, and I actually am so in awe of your guys' building. I don't know who's the main builder or if it's all you guys that built together, but yeah, that's what I thought. Your guys' buildings are so beautiful. Like I said to a couple of people, I'm like, I gotta get Josh to come do a building course, you know, and I would just love to learn how to do that, man. And you've been building a lot too, so that's what I wanted to lead into.
Yeah. We're already in.
Oh, we're you know what? Amazing. And that one of the things that we've been able to do in our life is continue to follow our dreams and passions. And by giving each other enough space, you know, I've been able to really dive into what I do. And Kelly also has been able to dive into what, you know, she does, and supporting the human microbiome and the soil microbiome and the connection of the two. But you know, the building is part of what's really amazing on our farm. And we, you know, natural building and building from local materials, and not going out to get commercial style wood, you know, and figuring out how to gather it out of the lake or after a big storm, or instead of clearing roads, you know, hey, there's a nice building log and keeping it on the side, or, you know, just never burning branches and figuring out how to incorporate them in the soil or make beds, you know, or divert the groundwater in the winter during a big rainstorm, or how to use that material as fungal filters to filter the earth so that our farm is a positive impact on the farm. But I think some of the most powerful work that we've been doing in the last 2 years is a lot of the work that Kelly's been doing.
I think that a lot of the work that's been going on has been what Josh has been doing. So first of all, I just wanted to say that we're really stoked about the Regenerative Conference, because what we do is we support regenerative lifestyle. We support regenerative small farmers. The whole idea of Dem Pure, everything that we want to continue doing is supporting small farmers. And that means actually supporting sovereignty of small farmers. We can't just put out this idea that, oh, let's have them be called a small farmer, but let's them have access to all of the licensing that all of the big corporate entities, all of the same fees, all of the same fines. That doesn't make any sense at all. So what we've been working on is sovereignty for small farmers, sovereignty for our own human microbiome. The reason why we're not coming down for the Regenerative Conference is we've never aligned with any federal government, and we're not going to start now. So just laying that out, like everything that's going on is just not where we want to be aligned at all. We have the ability to come down, but we just don't want to partake in that. And that is also representative of our life and where we're going, not just representative of this pandemic and whatever bullshit is happening there, but representative of us becoming more and more sovereign and really educating that out there. And how is it that we can truly change the laws so these big corporate entities and these big political structures basically lay the fuck off of the small farmer? Why is it that we can't grow multiple crops? The reason why is because we have to spend all of our money and all of our financing and all of our land and all of everything on cannabis. I mean, all of us in the regenerative farming module, and everybody in Dem Pure grows a tremendous amount of food and flowers, and they use their land for all different types of education components. Tourism. I mean, we could go on and on. So we really need to be talking about what is the next level. Cannabis has got us to this point, but cannabis has always opened up doors. And right now, cannabis is opening up a door of a myriad of plant medicine, a myriad of vegetable growing, everything that Nick was saying. Nick, by the way, love you. I mean, everything about you and Liz and who you are as family, as friends, you know, the support. We love and cherish Daniel, everything that you all have been going through. I mean, it's just
watching
seeing
your child
here
grow.
and listening to you talk makes my heart expand. Thank you. And all of you all, seeing all of you all after all of this time,
We take a
makes
lot
me
of
realize what it is that we're doing and why it is that we're so passionate about the work that we're doing every single day. We wake up every single day and we're thinking about the small farmer and the sovereignty of the small farmer. And we're going to be really blessed this summer to have, even though we don't align with the federal government, the federal Department of Agriculture is going to be coming to our farm with the premier again, because they want to start talking about what it is that we're doing, because what it is that we're doing represents every single one of you on this camera and so many of you all who are listening. And that is the next step in cannabis cultivation, is the sovereignty of the small farmer. So we have the ability to grow a myriad of all of those plant medicines, because plant medicine is the next step to us being able to be sovereign, for us to be able to have an independence.
And cannabis came from a place of herbalism and a place of the medicine man or the wise woman. And we want to keep cannabis sacred and keep regenerative lifestyles alive, which the teachings are in the wilderness, the teachings are in nature, the teachings are within regenerative family. And so, like the plants that we ingest, we want to become adaptable. So in this time, it's difficult. We've laid out some of the things that are hard, but like the microbiome eats pathogens, we need to eat oppression and turn it into opportunity. So through our adaptogenic ability and our ability to connect like mycelium underground with these intelligent beings, we'll always be here. We are going to always be here because we're strong, we're powerful, we matter, and we have an alignment with nature. And if we're going to talk about water pulses through our body at the highest percentage of anything in our body. Water covers the earth. Water surrounds the earth. We may live in an amniotic fluid. The earth is probably covered in amniotic fluid, and that's what the northern lights shine on and glisten, and they show us the colors of the infinite. They show us that we live in a multidimensional space.
Because of water.
Yeah, and water is the essence of life. So when we ally with helping water transform nutrients, we become smarter. When we drink water that's dumbed down with toxicity, then it tells other water in our body to not be smart and not regenerate. We want our water to regenerate. Masimoto, the scientist, shows how water changes through thoughts and through harmony and through well-being. So we're forming our land and texturing our land to structure the water as it falls from the sky, and structure through some intricate system to go into our body to build our intelligence and to pulse the protoplasm of every plant and every tree to create polypores and magical secondary metabolites. Water is life. And when we choose to build our soil like a sponge to grow fungi, water is our ultimate ally, our ultimate wellness. And when we eat it, we become more intelligent. When it breathes with the plants, we become more intelligent. And water is something we all need to really look into on how we can have a healthy source. When you look for a piece of property, try and find good water. Number one, without good water, it's hard to be healthy. It's hard to be healthy. So luckily, our regenerative lifestyle, we've paid off our land. We have the ability to ally with nature. We have the ability to live on the edge of wilderness and create our own world. And if we're going to create our own world, it's going to be super magical.
And also, just speaking about secondary metabolites, I just wanted to say that so much of us have been growing, and this regenerative conference is going to be the first time that a lot of people are coming out. I know that the Emerald Cup was as well. And, you know, as we've been uptaking all of this energy of what's been going on in the last 2 years, it forms secondary metabolites on how we integrate that knowledge and that nutrition or that toxicity that we've been uptaking. And I really want to encourage people that, you know, that uptake that we've all gotten, that the secondary metabolites that we're forming, which is going to be our communication and coming together and communing, is that of love, is that of coming together, is that of us really understanding that we've all come from incredible hardship of the last 2 years, and that the secondary metabolites that we're sharing with each other from our plants and also from our own internal struggles and our own internal growth is that of love and connection, and laying down that ego and that dogma of what we might have picked up within the last 2 years, so that we can come together. Because the most important thing about all of this is that small farmers and regenerative people and educators need to come together, because this is bigger than us. This is bigger than diversity.
It's bigger than hip hop.
It's way bigger than hip hop, and hip hop is big. It's even bigger than cannabis, because this is going to define small farmers into the next generation. Okay, we talked enough.
Hang on, and we have to respect the polyculture. You know, and the polyculture comes in the entourage effect of our medicine and the entourage effect of us coming together. We are the entourage.
And we didn't pay off our land with just one single source of things. We have scrapped. We have sold tomatoes. We have sold strawberries.
We've
we
gone
have
to
sold
festivals,
plants.
gone
We've
on
done
tour.
festivals.
Built fences.
We've done everything. We've done everything. We've trimmed for other people for seasons. We've done everything that we possibly could. So that's part of the polyculture, is what Nick said. Don't get caught up into believing that you're just one thing, because polyculture is going to give us a well-rounded version of our best selves.
That to stay on there, I wanted to ask you, I mean, that paying off your farm, that has just, that's my big dream. Is I just feel that's when my first step of real freedom is going to happen. You know, getting the property and getting on and getting use of it and having the contract and the bank loan, that was a big one. But as I started developing, it's been like, this ain't my thing. Someone can take it away from me, really. And especially now that I grow cannabis, like they could literally take my loan. But I'm just curious about when that, not necessarily when, but when that happened, how that felt, and like how, you know, how that transformed. I don't know.
Well, originally we left, you know, our area as underground family. You know, we were, you know, refugees, and for years we were just, you know, living at the herbalist, you know, the nature life, and then we figured out, hey, we can transform this and bring this, you know, and get a piece of land. And did you?
Well, I just wanted to answer your question, is that we just paid it off last month. It was the very last payment. We just made our last payment January 1, 2022. That's how we came into this new year. We're now in our 50s. This was a long journey. And like Josh said, we've been caretaking other land, renting places, and
but we've been on this land for 15 years now.
And it's been 15 years, and it's been, everything. And we do have a feeling of freedom. We do have a feeling of, more than anything, because we've always been outlaws, and because the way that we look at the world, I have this feeling of, don't fuck with us. I know that sort of is silly, but like, given the world, it's just like, now I don't have to talk to anyone. I don't have to, it's just now us. And that feels really good.
Well, it's empowering because, how we got here. So now we're here, and we have this land and we have all this infrastructure. So for the last 2 years, you say you've been on lockdown, but, and there's so many places we can't go, we're stuck. And so we're here making our land spectacular. It's kind of a perfect situation. So we've turned this into a spectacular opportunity for so many years, no one knew what we were doing. And then we came out and started teaching. Now we're just back into our internal, just do your craft. Like, what have you learned? Who cares whatever anyone thinks about it? Do your craft. And that's the teaching.
And did we celebrate? No, we've been too busy working. So
we've been shoveling.
And is the work done because we paid off our land? Absolutely not. It's just totally begun, because today is a new day.
And the thing is, in Canada, the family farm has never really been represented in cannabis. To be honest, it's been a very corporate thing here in Canada. And so in this zone and other places in Canada, we never really got to represent ourselves, in the way that people in Oregon, California, other places have. So we've had to stick with that compassionate medicine style, that get the medicine to the masses style. And that's timeless. And nature farming got us here. Like Nick says, it's what you don't spend that makes you money. And it's allying with nature and nature farming. And it's that whole realization of, wow, I don't need to spend thousands of dollars to start a farm every year. I can just do it in the fall and let nature take care of it over the winter. And wow, it's amazing. So, we give thanks for every person here, because they've all been part of our journey. Eric, Greenhouse, amazing person, your wife, your whole family, incredible. Kevin Jodry, thank you for everything that you've done, and you're an inspiration to us. Like, give thanks, Kevin Jodry. And Susan, the work that you've done with tourism is very inspirational to us here in Canada, because we in the Kootenays would like to see a style like that.
And you, just as a badass lady, you know how I feel about you. I love you to the world and back, because of everything that you've been pushing forward for this plant and the community.
Steve, with aquaponics and everything beyond, just incredible. She's got Tricks up as Steve because he's Steve Tricks Raisman. You know what I mean? And we really appreciate his ability to think and
everybody that Joshua, you've chosen to come on and be a part of this is just really bringing it forward, and we really appreciate that.
Best Friend Farms out in Maine. We already know how you feel about you. Marcus, most amazing person in the world, holding space as always, and always putting your best foot forward for regenerative agriculture and natural medicine living soils. Thank you.
Thank you guys so much. We're doing a long intro, but it's really cool. And so I want to move on to Stevie Tricks next, Potent Ponics. We talk actually often, so this is a leading question, if you will. What have you been up to for the last 2 years?
Since I got back from Africa, I caught one of the last planes out of Southern Africa in the middle of the plague, which was fun. It was mostly me and embassy workers. And then came back, and I've been just working here in Oklahoma with a bunch of different people on both living soil and aquaponics farms. For my talk, we're going to be talking a lot about living aquatic soil and how it can complement your terrestrial soils. So how to take, different types of aquatic inputs, aquatic IMO, kind of some different methodologies, and add it to your existing soil facility. So if you're doing regenerative soil and you already got your stuff down, this is just going to help you increase your biodiversity even more. We also have some different side-by-sides and some comparisons between terpenes and some other things with one of the groups I've been talking to and working with a little bit up in Canada. So we'll have some hard data on those types of things with compost. So this is compost with and without the aquatic inputs. So, you know, very similar to what people are doing to kind of give people more of an idea of an exact comparison to what a lot of people are already doing out there. And we're also going to be talking about a new initiative that I've been helping try to put together called Open Nutrient Project, which is kind of a open source aggregated methodology for having all of the information for different plant inputs in one place, so that people can know for organic inputs what plants in their yard they can ferment or compost or make into teas or whatever their methodology that they prefer is, into one centralized open source database that anyone can get, along with all the different tests and whatever else they need to analyze that. And try to break it down to understand it in the same way that a lot of the salt people do, but for specifically ferments and teas and organic inputs, the way that all of us are so passionate about. So that's some of the other stuff. And then talking about a little bit about some of the more advanced KNF stuff. Chris was touching a little bit about the IPMO, which is utilizing some local pest control agents. We had a lot of success with that in Zimbabwe, and we're excited to talk about that and share that methodology with people, as well as just some of the other different things I've been working on in terms of refinement on some of the other things. We're going to go over the Blue Labs, which is the phycocyanin isolates, and some of the other really cool organic inputs that we've been tinkering with that are kind of building upon a lot of the great work that a lot of the previous people in the organic space have helped us give us a wonderful foundation on, kind of and then iterating upon that and you know, adding a whole bunch of new twists and turns to that methodology. So I'm super excited about that and super excited to share a lot of this stuff for the first time with people.
Whoo! He just fucking like, boom. Half of those things I kind of understand. And Steve goes deep. He's really deep into all this stuff. And it's something that you're a very unique individual in how you deep dive. And I appreciate it. And he's had a great talk. Steve has been at every one of these. You were in Africa and you missed
all
Humboldt,
of them except for the ones in Africa. Yeah.
Yeah. And, you know, it's a pleasure to have you, pleasure to be your friend. And I really appreciate the deep dive you take. Like I said, I'm just going to repeat myself into all this stuff. And I'm excited to hear your iterations on that. I know we've spent a lot of time talking about terrestrial and aquatic microbes, and you've helped me figure out my system and dial it in and kind of build upon it. And so it's been really, really awesome, man. So I want to introduce Best Friend Farms. I think we've spoken, or at least I've seen you on Hash Church before. Maybe not officially we've met, but what's up, bro? How you doing?
How you doing? Nice to be here. Nice to meet. I think I've seen you there once or twice too.
You want to just introduce yourself and what you got going on? You're in Maine, yeah?
Oh yeah, yeah. I'm up in Maine. It's pretty cold here right now. I have a larger acreage farm, but I've got about 10 acres working. It was a clear cut when we came in, and have actually the water conversation's pretty cool because Maine has such volume of water and really good water, and it's something that on this land was like one of the key factors, as Josh and Kelly were saying, with or as far as how important it is to the land and the whole conversation you guys are having around water. So water was kind of a central focus here, where we have a good well and it goes deep, but I've also dug a couple ponds, which I don't know, not to go on, but if it's on the water topic, we've actually drawn some of the water away from the cannabis site where we are, because Maine has so much ambient water that I've drained off of the medical cannabis portion, which is about a 10,000 to 15,000 square foot portion all in all for the area. And on each north and south, I've pulled off the water, kind of swaled in and drained off coming into it. So yeah, I just wanted to let you know, we're taking water importantly and trying to work with it here, where we actually have so much of it and are blessed by so much water that I'm trying to kind of, collect it and drain off. But anyhow, hey.
That's the same thing I'm doing, man. I'm in a really wet space. I have 10 acres, and at least 2 of those is wetland, delineated wetlands, but where my cannabis facility is not. But it's still very wet, and I've had to make roads so that I can get through and with my tractor that I purchased, and just equipment so we can process. Because it's like, even the areas where I have to walk towards my shipping container, it's all mud. Like I can't even wear, clogs or anything. You have to. So I've really learned about that. And I've actually dug a couple ponds, and I've built a filtration system where I'm filtering the water and collecting it off all my greenhouse spaces in my house, and every roof and everything drains all into this pond system that I'm now kind of, my property is a hill and it's sloped. So I'm going to continue these ponds uphill, and I'll just kind of slowly trickle it through them all. So they're all moving, and I'm shooting for, I think 500 some thousand gallons of water storage, so that it'll get me through the 4 months of, just kind of this big dream. If I maxed it all out and blew it all to hell wherever, and I just kind of want to have this like super powerful water system that I can, rely on. But
yeah, I love it. Water dream. You got your dream for your water system. That was definitely, I was the last 5 years before I moved back here now for 5, I was off the grid up in southern Humboldt, and we were just pulling gravity fed water there the whole time. So kind of got familiar with water from the hills without a system, and then moved back to Maine. It was like this huge blessing. Besides the peace and the freedom out here, it's pretty isolated, but the water blessing is just water everywhere. So it became kind of one of those things, like move from back from west to east again, that we're trying to, work with the water and build the water dream here too. I got this little, kind of dream going where I could actually pasture pump out with a solar, inversion into even a little bank. And then I've got enough drop of like 20 or 30 feet with this rock staircase waterfall. Already got that part in where we're piped in, and I'd like to feed turbine energy, even be able to kind of get enough drop where maybe I could, run small turbines and talk to someone who knows more, maybe yourself, who knows, if I could, get some leads on people that know what they're doing for more, some of the off-grid stuff, even though we're on here. And I'd like to aerate the pond, get some brook trout in there with some, we just put shiners in actually in the big back pond. So trying to set the bait, to get the ecosystem in the pond too, not just for use for agriculture, but where we have like a habitat and ecosystem, even some food that could come out of it. So I was actually kind of wondering if anyone.
Oh no, go ahead. I was just going to ask. I just heard that you were recently DEM Peer certified, so I was just going to ask about that process and who came out and share about it.
Well, I mean, I've been talking to Josh and Kelly for over a couple years, and then this pandemic thing kind of happened. So I haven't got to show them the land, which would be probably what I would love to do the most, is be able to show those folks what we got going here and get some feedback and such. But I've worked with Ancient Green Farm out here quite a bit, and they've both been out here. Bobby, a lot. I've seen him even in the last month or so. So we've over the last few years, he became pretty familiar with my farm, and then we talked about it there a lot too. And again, the last couple of years were so fast that I just recently, right into the winter, even as we kind of like shut down the outdoor portion, but those friends blessed me with a certification, and I'm stoked to be part of it. It's just such a collective to look up to, and with the movement really regenerative, but to make the earth a better place with better medicine, and all the things you guys are hitting on and talking about is just like how we're living. And in Maine, definitely trying to stick to that regenerative focus here too. And anyway, I could trail off, but
I remember now. When you were on Hash Church at one point, you were showing pictures of donuts, right? Was that you that was making the hash donuts?
Yeah, I did some hash donuts, man. I actually donated those for a veterans. A VA is where the charity went to. We donated them for a raffle. So those are the originals, are actually sent out recently.
Are you pushing the hash out in the market there in Maine?
Well, it's kind of funny you say that, man. Just today I came on a little late because I'm meeting for the first time the Helio friends here and the Hidden Forest guys. We're just kind of like doing a seed meeting today anyway. And this brother's here right now. You know, we're talking the same type of shop that's going on here. So I'm doing some hash, but it's more traditional. And I know these guys are into the full melt stuff, and you know, I have some rosins and such too, but more traditional artisan kind of air dried hash thing we're doing, you know, for the market, in terms of the market.
Well, I don't really know where to go from here. Josh, if you look like you might want to pop in, we can open it up the discussion. I just wanted to introduce everybody, and you know, this kind of thing is somewhat intended to be a little bit of a marketing for the conference, and I don't mind doing it because I do feel that it is kind of a nonprofit thing, that the content is so good, and I'm not doing it to make a buck, and so I kind of really just appreciate you know, Marcus giving the space, and I also kind of feel guilty when I'm marketing. Like I'm just so against it, but I'm kind of justifying. So anyways, I want a bunch of people to come to these conferences, and these speakers are all fucking awesome, man. And I want to showcase that. And because the thing really has been, you know, a powerful part of my life, and I'm quite honored to take part in the thing, and I'm glad we're still doing it. And I'm really excited for this year. So I don't know. I just wanted to open it up.
I wanted to say you forgot the seed swap on Sunday. Everyone brings their seeds to share as well. If you have not had the pleasure of going to the Regen conference, you get, you know, everyone is sharing all kinds of amazing genetics, not only cannabis, but vegetables. I know there was a guy that gave me some Civil War era, like okra seeds that are super amazing that I've been keeping going and breeding out as well. And a whole bunch of other just amazing vegetable and herbal genetics that people are willing to share. So definitely bring seeds to share if you are coming out, and you know, you'll get a whole bunch of wonderful ones in return. Just remember, like, a Ziplocs and Sharpies, because there never seems to be enough of those.
Don't write Sharpies on a Ziploc. You end up getting home and going, what the fuck, Kush? And then you'd like, I have boxes and boxes of seeds that I don't know what they are. I shit you not. Like, I've started my seed company off of the gifts during these seed swaps. It's absolutely amazing. I've got to look through a ton of stuff, and but I do have a ton of stuff that I'm like, damn, maybe someday I'll open it, but if I don't know, I don't know. It's just kind of one of those things. So I suggest writing on a card inside a Ziploc, or, you know, just kind of think through how that works. But in that same notion, like, I kind of came up with a concept talking with Kev one day. He had gifted me some Chemdog Special Reserve root beer seeds, or root beer Chemdog Special Reserve seeds. And I opened them up and found a couple killer females that were just, they held through to, I think, the first or second week of November here. And we had a gnarly wet year, gnarly wet year. It rained all, it was cold, and they hung through with, you know, no mold issues. And they kind of represented the two ends of the spectrum, one the Chemdog, one the root beer. And so I pulled a couple males, and I'm open pollinating those right now in an indoor space. And along with the purchase of the conference ticket, everyone's getting a pack of these seeds. And it's where the attempt is to do kind of a regional group breeding project. And so we kind of have the Humboldt, California area. We got the Michigan, the Maine, and the Oklahoma. And we're going to, you know, I'm working on organizing. Honestly, I've been very busy. I thought I'd have it organized by now, but I want to get each of those regions into a social media area where we can do group voting. You know, we'll grow all the seeds out. People will test. They'll make hash. They'll do all the things that we do. And around this time next year, we'll get together on social media and kind of work through and say, okay, in the Humboldt region, Kev pulled a couple killer males, and they got this and that, and we all decided we want to use his males. And Eric found a cool female, and so, hey, you two guys do this project, and maybe, you know, maybe Nicholas will actually do the breeding, and you know, and then we can even take that further and structure it. I want to incorporate technology in the blockchain so that we can incorporate a payment structure so that people that do the work can get paid as we end up selling these seeds. And that everyone that took part in the conference will also potentially get dividend back down the line. So I kind of broke it out, and a very simple sales plan. 2 years from now, you can get paid back your ticket purchase just through participating in this process. And I think it's really cool, and it'll be really fun. And you know, big thanks to Kev for kind of helping inspire that, you know, and gifting the seeds that we get to do this with. If you guys don't know, root beer is from Mean Gene from Mendocino. And the Chem Dog Special Reserve is from aficionado that Leo had. And so Leo gifted the pollen to Gene, and Gene made these seeds and gifted them to Kev, and he held on to them for a while. And the Chem Dog, Kev, you could probably talk about the Chem Dog a little bit more than I could, to be honest.
Yeah, the seeds are probably, I don't know, 8 years old. So it was back when they all rolled together as a crew, and they gave me the stock and I just put it away. And then years later, when root beer gets blistering hot, I went through my collections. I remembered I had something connected to it. And we just thought, you and I, Josh and I were talking about, how do we add value to the regen, and how do you connect people into a collaborative project that allows many people to work together to find common benefit. And so when you tap into lines that have heavy traction, it's a lot easier. And the main point is that you get to have people work together, sifting stock, doing collaborative breeding. And that root beer is the first gen root beer. It's not the subsequent generations. That's the original one. So there's nobody with that plant in seed form. I mean, it's that old.
Yeah, everything that's been released root beer is a cross, a BX2, a BX3. This is the original one.
That's the original one. So it's and Gene knows too. So like for me, when I grab Eugene's, if you want me to put him in the market, I do. And if you don't, I don't. It's just really respect to the individual. So I mean, I move Gene's continuously, but I don't step on anybody's toes. And so with Gene, he's about it because it's a good project. And the Chem Dog Special was a project they did up in Mendocino, and it was a Star Dog. I want to say Star Dog like Chem D, and it's controversial in all its little permutations and how it all happened. But the main point is that Chem Dog Special line was some really good herb, and I had the female that won that 2012 Cup in hand, and Ellie and Leo had the male. And then they took the pollen and threw it on it. And the problem with the Chem Dog Special is it's so dominant in its profile that it masks a lot of the stuff you hit it with. So you have to be able to make sure you do a large enough population hunt to get what you want, which is that gas tone, but with the other nuances from the female present. So the black lime reserved, if you look through the population, you'll pull out the right ones that have the lime that's intense, but still has that gaseous background. And I think the same with the root beer is that you just have to go through. And I'm glad that when you opened the pack, you found some killers. I think you said you got one that was like vanilla soda.
Yeah, one that was total vanilla soda. And
the one really interesting.
Yeah.
But it's the same thing. It's just you got to tie the people together in a way to where you form community. Community is a fucking great word, but what does it mean? It means collaborative effort and support. And that's what a community is. It's where people put effort in and support each other and do your best you can to be a human race. And so the idea of like letting the Regen Conference be a place where people can get together to do projects that transcend time. So in 2 years, you'll see the ramifications of that project. And then I did another one too, where I was able to access a bunch of stock out of Afghanistan. And I talked to the group in Afghanistan and said, hey, what I want to do is I want to take it, I'll do a selection, I'll do a pollination, and then I want to give the seeds out for free in limited quantities so that people can access the stock. And what it does, it drives attention to farmers in Afghanistan. And it's funny, but I got hit up by an Afghani guy that was telling me I was a fucking like a colonialist, and I was screwing the Afghanis by giving these seeds away. And I'm like, but it was Afghanis that sent me the seed, and it was Afghanis that told me to give them away. But it's a question of how do you send value back to the farmers, because they're in the same situation we're in. And so we're trying to figure out, how do you really drive attention to people who are struggling and allow there to be benefit in a world that's really difficult to do. But at least what we'll do is we'll take these Zani Afghani lines, and I'll give packs of them out at the 4 different shows. And it just lets people access stock. And it's like $200 a pack if you bought them. But I'm going to give out, like 20 packs at each event. And what it'll do is it'll allow people to get really good stock that you can't access. And it should allow people to do 2 things. It should allow you to do preservation, where you keep the line pure, so that what you have is you have the connection to the past, and then outcross it, which is what I've been playing around with in addition, to bring some of those unique profiles and cannabinoid ratios into modern cultivars so that you get rid of some of this blandness that's happening in the quality of the high. We're driving cannabis for morphological traits. We drive it for numerical traits. We drive it for a lot of shit, but I really don't care about any of that. I mean, I do for the market, but in terms of what I want for cannabis, what I want is I want really good cannabis that lifts me up. I want to feel it. And I think that, you know, the ability for all of us to work together in this form is just awesome.
I just wanted to say really quick that one of the most potent strains we grew this year was a Tangiland Chem Special Reserve number 4. And the Chem Special Reserve number 4, not sure where it came from, but
Well,
it was
it came from
out of-
me.
Was it?
Yeah,
Anyway,
yeah, that's
so
a mail I put in. Yeah.
the number
Amazing.
4, and it's true that we grew a bunch of different Chem Special Reserve number 4 because there was a person in Eugene up in Oregon who grew it and made some seeds out of it, and it does dominate the profile. But the way Tangi dominates the profile, it was this amazing union, and it had like dark blue tones to the plant, right? It was super interesting and just fire flavor. We brought it to the Unicorn Cup in the area here, and we didn't enter it, but it was just like a wow moment, you know, to putting it up. So yeah, knowing your terpene profiles and how dominant they can be, and bringing together two dominant ones can be really obviously pretty powerful. So
Thanks for that number 4, Kevin. Really is beautiful.
No, my pleasure.
It's got the resistance in it too. You know, I had it. So right next to it, I had the Mean Mug, which is a GMO root beer BX cross root beer BX2, and they couldn't make it. They couldn't handle it. They grew well. They looked good, but when the pressure came, they folded at the end. You know, they do good in the greenhouse, but it just kind of was very clear to see what the Chem Dog was throwing in there. You know, in that instance.
Yeah, it's a good line. You know, when it first popped out, we dug through it, and we just at that time, you know, we would just release some material into the system so people had access. And I started releasing males into the system that I had used that really threw some interesting traits. And I was releasing it all over the place, and it was free. I wasn't selling the work. It was just really so that people had access to some stuff that gave them some value. And so it's just funny because all the years down the road, you still see all this stuff popping out. But, you know, that's the whole point. And I think that's why I love being, you know, to be invited to be part of the regenerative crew, is that it's just really a healthy human group. And it's just really refreshing because it lets you feel like you're alive. Everything else is just basically you just keep your head down and move your feet. But when you get to do work with other people in a genuine way, it's enriching.
I wanted to ask you, Kev, did you ever find any perennial genetics in the Zamal? I know you've grown quite a bit of it or worked with people that have worked with quite a bit of it.
You know, I started to tap into it, but then I ran out of space. And so I never got to dive deep into the Zamal populations. And I ran Zamal hybrids, but they had been hybridized down to where they had a reasonable finish time. But I've never got a chance to run the 2-year cut, you know, where it's going to grow for a year, then flower the next year, almost like a biennial. And I haven't. And it's just really a matter of, you only have so much space and time to chase all your shit. And I end up chasing so much shit that I end up cutting most of my personal life right out of my life. And I have kids. And so I try to make sure that my kids get priority, and then everything else comes after that. And so you can only take on so much at a time, you know what I mean? But I'm fascinated with the Zamal work. I always wanted to go to the Reunion Islands, and that's something I've always wanted to do. There's a few places on earth I wanted to go experience, you know, the native culture and the cannabis that comes from it. Did you mess around with anything like that?
I got some of the seeds from out there. We didn't find any there, but I still have 12 seeds left sitting in Zimbabwe, which is very close in latitude, which I thought if I'm going to have that expression, that's where I'm going to have it. So we are going to, once we get fired back up again, we're going to pop those. We're working on CBD early on, but everything's still kind of on pause due to the virus and basically the inability to export stuff through South Africa right now. And for the last year and a half, basically.
Well, this is great. I really appreciate being on here with everybody here. I respect everybody that's here and really appreciate everybody's work. I liked hearing about people talking about the terpenes and the meshing them together. You know, I've done a lot of holding lines in inbreeding those lines and taking them to further F generations till they're pretty predictable, at least for the traits that I'm choosing for. But then watching as those come, as you develop that, and then you cross them back against something that's really different. And this comes back to what Josh, you were talking about, Josh and Kelly, Dragonfly, just getting to that blend really well. To me, it seems like if you've got one poly hybrid and you got one inbred line and you cross them, you get a dominated thing. But if you've got two really solid, predictable, at least in one level traits, and in this case, maybe terpenes, and you go back and put them together, what happens, it seems, based on COAs and what I've done, is it brings both of those terpene groups in and complexifies the end result and gives you, say, if you have a terpinolene dominant and you have a myrcene dominant and you make a real F1 with two F6s or something, what you end up seeing is a collaborative joining and strengthening in overall terpene numbers, which, you know, this is the kind of stuff that I've just been kind of, you know, one season at a time, just looking at, and I'm stoked that other people are as interested in that stuff and looking at it, because I think when we all come together and start to share these genetics, we really can further the potential of really nuanced stuff within the cannabis genome. And yeah, I have to get going because I got a little one who's gonna have to take over the space and get a nap here pretty soon. So I appreciate everybody. I don't even know how to use this thing that well, so I can't even tell who's on this thing. I just have my wife set it up, and I don't know how to say goodbye and stuff, but just wanted to say that it was a pleasure being here. I'd love to be in a room with you all. It would make a little more sense to me. But thanks, and it's good seeing some faces that I haven't seen in a while. I look forward to the conference.
Cheers, homie. I look forward to seeing you. Thanks for coming on.
Yeah, man. Big love.
Eric, what's going on with you in genetics? You got anything that you're excited about these days? I know you're a big hash head.
Man, I'm excited about all kinds of things. I mean, I feel like whenever I run into someone, there's something exciting going on. And, you know, for right now, a genetic acquisition is really a hot topic, I feel like, for small farms and big farms, just because things get watered down pretty easy out there in the market. And not all cuts are the same. I mean, there's, people are talking about this stuff on LinkedIn and other social media platforms on the fact that, you know, a lot of the genetics out there are really hyped up by the name, but, you know, the selection process from nursery to nursery or farm to farm is quite different. And so some of these things get turned into memes when in fact they are, you know, quite fascinating when you have the right cut. And so I think it's really going to be up to farms and people in general to really get this selection process figured out, because you can have a hype name and be a complete winner in some cases, but at the same time, you can, you know, have some of these great names and it's a complete shitter at the end of the day. And some of the shitters of what's gotten propelled in California through a lot of these nurseries maybe it's just been by accident. Maybe it looked like a winner at first, but it didn't turn out to stay that way or something. I don't know, but because of the hop latent viroid, the nursery side of the things are really getting difficult too. I mean, you know, people are turning to seeds more. And so that's why I say the selection process is really, you know, the next key, strategy in learning how to do that properly from farm to farm. I'm sure the interpretation is different from person to person, place to place, but sourcing the right seeds, picking the right winner out of those, and trying to circumnavigate some of this nursery stuff while this, hop situation gets dealt with. I mean, tissue culture is definitely an option too, as long as the SOPs are followed. But I just see it's kind of a difficult time right now for certain farms to navigate things when we've got brands to kind of fulfill or names to fulfill, and then we also are trying to get healthy plants passed around, and it even makes it hard to pass things around like we used to. People are more reluctant to pass around a cut anymore than they are sharing some seeds.
Well, and it's, I just lost my train of thought, damn stoner.
Hey, Eric, is there an OG cut, still an original OG cut rolling around Grass Valley zone? Because I know that you are a huge lover of the original OG.
Yeah, dude, it's so fucking hard to find anymore. Like it used to be just, everything was OG and gas. And it's like, man, and there's a couple of people around here that have the original one. And I talked to somebody the other day just about getting a sack to smoke. I'm not worried about exactly getting the cut and growing it myself anymore, just because of where I'm at these days and my traveling and ability to, farm at the same time, especially keeping some cannabis plants around. And so I just like to smoke it, like the beta caryophyllene thing's cool and all that stuff. And there's definitely some tasty stuff. But at the end of the day, when you want to sit down and smoke your gas, it's a little bit harder to get to. But seeing the genetics out there is amazing, because I was just actually in Florida at a farm that's, trying to deal with genetics. And there's a lot of bushy plants and things that are called OG and Kush and stuff like that. But they really just as far as looking at a plant as a teen, even don't have the characteristics that the real OG had. And then all of a sudden when you do see it, it's like, wow, it's almost like something you hadn't seen in a long time. Stretches really far, not a lot of sites, just, starts to want to lean over. It's almost like a plant that you see in the wintertime that doesn't get enough light. They just elongate and stretch, but under the right conditions with the right light, everything's doing fine. But you look over and see those OGs just stretched out like that, and you go, wow, that's something I haven't seen in a long time. And it's no wonder in some cases that it's not in production as much. It just is, some of those original ones aren't the biggest producers in this day and age, and especially the price of cannabis in Cali, you got to get the most bang for your buck.
It's interesting that the sour diesel mother clone has still really kind of, you can find it, and it's interesting how that one stayed pretty steady. It's just like, bam, we got the sour diesel, and I love that that's around. So, and I'm just a little curious about how Kangen water is used in the nursery. If you may have already talked about that, but it seems like
I got a sack for you, Eric. When you come in to Humboldt, I you know me, I still have all the original shit. And I still grow it for myself because I like to smoke OG. And I'll bring you back when you roll into town.
Yeah, I'm excited to come up for the region. And I signed up for the fucking Gangia. Like I'm all about it. Like it took me a minute to get signed up, but I'm excited. I mean, I've been a big fan ever since you developed the concept, and getting the community together and going to the spring kickoff was a big one. And, going to the Golden Tarp Awards. I remember speaking at one of the first Golden Tarp Awards, and I'm not really a public speaker by any accounts. I kind of just it was something I felt like I had to do in the business side of things. And so when I was at the Golden Tarp Awards, they didn't have a projector, and it was the first time that I did a presentation without a slide screen, because I kind of used that to move me along. And so it was more off the cuff. And I remember using my hands so much that I banged into the microphone and knocked it over. I was a nervous fucking wreck, but yeah, man, it's going to be good to hang out and go through the process. I'm excited and impressed with what you guys have done.
Well, the beauty of the Gangia is that, we use those 4 categories of perception as the classifications. And a woman named Ellen Holland just released a really good book called Weed. And the first 90 pages of it are the 4 categories. And then the next section is all the craft farmers. Aren't you in that season? Are you in Weed?
What do you mean? Am I in weed?
Are you in
Yes.
that book, Weed?
No, I'm not. No.
Because there's a ton of craft farmers that she brought in to talk about all the different production methodologies which drive quality. But the first third of the book is all based off of my 4 categorical divisions. And so what it does is it starts just to allow us to be able to use some of these simplified but accurate methods of explanation. So that what you get is you get an ability to have conversations with people. Because when you start taking them into, you start taking them down the metabolite route, you lose people too quickly. And what you want to be able to do is get them enthused, not wow them with your incredible fucking memory of recollection of what profiles are present, but it smells like a banana. And it's a lot easier to say than it has ossamine. And so when you put it all together, it works. And it's just a matter of trying to work together where we can use all the different skill sets from all of us to present information that allows people to make better choices and better for them. Not so much better for me. It's just better choices in general. So you're going to dig it. You really like the program. And the location, we're going to shift it from my spot at the One Log because the Cookies equity program goes in this spring. So they get an equity program where you got Chris Weber out of Detroit. He put together a huge facility in Detroit, and they're having people that qualify as equity participants from around the US fly up to us to spend a couple months at the One Log so they can get an education on basically what's the new industry, and also how do you use your equity situation to your best potential, because that's the issue, that you have these individuals with equity ability, but they end up getting fucked because you kind of use it as a door to get into a license. And the thing is, what they get is a stipend, not generational wealth, which is what you should get from these businesses. You should have an ability to create something fucking long-term that benefits for time. And so when we run that program at the One Log, it'll take over the facility. And so Derek has a beautiful location up in Salmon Creek. So he's got like a 200-acre location in Salmon Creek where we're going to have the events, and it'll be killer because we'll be able to bring farmers in, and it'll be a lot easier for people to come and go. But it's been a really good program, and the feedback's been excellent. And, the main point is just trying to be able to get the public to understand better what it is they buy and why they buy it, so that you empower them to make the right choices, be it whatever. And for the smaller farmer, the quality of product is where we shine, because you're going to bring cultivars forward that are not on the 5 pounds per 25 square foot metric. You're going for quality of experience more than I'm getting X amount out. And the only way that can happen is if the price is above $400 a pound. And so I have some really cool shit I'm working on, but I'll break all that out at the event. I've been busy. Your boy been busy.
Yeah, no, it sounds like it. And I've always loved the fact that we qualify the weed based on the smells, like not all these other reports and, THC and stuff like that. And so, the hemp people had to do that, with the phytology and the phytofacts and, some of that stuff is based on smokable flower being terpene driven, because you're not looking for how much CBD it has. And so, combining some of these things with what you've done and what they're talking about to educate people on this terpene aspect of a qualitative, way of looking at cannabis is awesome. We just have to get the chain of distribution not to fuck it up in between.
Well, that's the issue that's the issue we go into, is that, how do you approach the business you're in? Because the issue is that you take this beautiful product at the farm and then you put it into a supply chain that's as fucking broken as could be. And by the time the end person consumes it, it's trash. And so, like, for me, when I'm doing breeding projects right now, a lot of the stuff that I'm working on is we're doing holdability testing to find out what's the degradation when it's not held in refrigerated stasis. Does it actually retain any qualities? And does the plant have an ability to handle the vibration and movement through the supply chain? Because I've never seen a container that wasn't kicked and pushed. Like, they just get beat to death. How do we create plants that fit that reality, so that what you have is you have something that can make it through the system? Because some of the fine product, I would say, like, what's a good example? That Whitethorn Rose that Casali does, it makes some of the best hash I've smoked in years. The quality of the profile is phenomenal. And the flowers are gorgeous, but they don't hold up to supply chain movement. And so the problem is if he puts that flower in the system and it doesn't move smoothly, it gets destroyed. And it ends up making Johnny look like he's an inferior farmer with an inferior product. And it couldn't be any further from the truth. He's a great farmer and he's got a great product, but the system's screwed up. And so you do the best you can to fix problems in the short term so that there's marketability and movement of product for farmers. And at the same time, you're developing, it's almost like a duality of what I do. One of them is Epicurean and the other one is just dealing with the fact that the system's fucked. And if you can't get paid, you're not staying alive as a farmer. So you have to have something that can make it through the chain. It has to have hot numbers, has to have agronomic abilities, and it has to be able to handle supply chain issues. And then the other product that you can release in limited form that really allows you to have an identity as a craft producer.
And that's important to note that this week in California, a lot of small family farmers and craft farmers went to Sacramento to lobby at the Capitol building. So, you know, a lot of love to every person that showed up to Capitol building. I think Supernova Woman on Instagram, I think, is one woman that, or one group that covered the event, Alpenglow. So many people were there. And it's really important to note that, you know, as we talk about regenerative farming, we have to continue, like Season does, you know, so many people, you know, just work actively with creating the environment to embody what we're doing. You know, like a lot of people in California can't even make products. So it's hard to be an amazing grower with products that embody what you're doing on the land, because you ultimately have to give it to a whole other entity and hope that they represent you in the right way. And I that's why, and it's a global issue with cannabis. So you know, just make everyone in the world.
It's a global issue with farmers.
Well, let's just feel represented.
Everywhere.
It's everywhere in the world that people are fighting corporate entities. India, it's huge in India at this moment. You know, Thailand. You know, you say, oh, it's legal in Thailand, but a lot of our friends in Thailand, you know, are having a really hard time finding something authentic that represents Thai cannabis, you know, in their market. It's very university driven and very corporate driven. So it's very important to us as a global community to continue to work on, you know, when we say support the small farmer, it's supporting farm gate sales and the ability for farmers to create their own products and get it to the people. And you can still have, you know, requirements that make the products, you know, up to standards and everything, but, you know, having to be separate from your retail chain, it kills the consumer too, because then you get limited amount of products. So in the end, you're trying to find a lot of products to fit an ailment. And in the recreational or legalization market around the world, it's very limited on what you can get. And farms would be amazingly creative, even if you could do co-ops. And, you know, and then that would be talking about your bioregion. You know, every bioregion would have an amazing set of herbs to work with along with cannabis. And it would be nice to see that represented as we move forward.
You know what?
I was just going to toss in. We're right in it in Washington. You know, we're 9 years in, and they threw up a bill I posted earlier in this week to do direct farm sales. And the way we're structured a little different than California. In order for me to get product to store, I have a processor license, and that license lets me do anything. You know, I could make food if I was able to put in a septic system. I can't, but wanted to put them in the septic system and have a kitchen. I could do that on my property, and I could make whatever products I wanted, period. You know, I could even add in blasting and whatever sort of processing I wanted under the sun I could do. I would, maybe require some additional fire stuff, but with this direct farm thing, it really gives me the ability to do craft things. And my testimony when I got on the public thing Friday was, hey, I want to do maybe one event a month tops, like maybe quarterly, maybe by twice a year, have an event where I sell some products direct. have an educational event and have my products available on the side type thing, and like make it real low, and then maybe sell to my neighbors as they came by, and it would be huge for our family, because even though I have the ability and all those licenses, in order for me to take it on, I can't do it personally by myself. I need a whole processing facility. I need a warehouse. I need employees to get herb, into the store. I kind of started down these paths, and then I realized and learned how challenging it is, similar to what Nick was saying. And it's like, this isn't what I want to do. When I signed up for this, I didn't want to learn how to run a sticker printer and do graphic design and test this cannabis for all this shit. Like, I wanted to grow and farm and those laws. I'm just backing it up. So if you're in Washington, please support. Like, this is huge. And in Washington, I've watched and been a little bit a part of this stuff for a decade now. And the legislators really do hear the voice of the people. Email in or just taking the time to send in a written testimony does a lot, at least in our state. And our state supports small farmers. And so as they hear that, what a big impact, it really can make a difference. So that's my little plug on that. Well, you were gonna say, Kev?
What you have is you have an issue that, because the United States is the destination sale for most of these countries that I work in, they're having this incredible conundrum about how do they get the products that are from their area into the US market and be accepted, because we're obsessed with morphology, right? The Americans are obsessed with looks of cannabis. And so the Thai are trying to reclassify how cannabis is viewed so that you don't use structure as one of the criteria. And what I'm trying to help the groups that I work with understand that there's really the two markets you create: the internal market in your country, where you specialize and focus on what is indigenous, what is your base form. And then from there, you can create other things that are hybrids to move globally that'll work in supply chain shipment. But because the US is the destination, it's almost like everyone wants to throw everything they're creating out and come after what sells here. And it couldn't be a worse decision. I'm like, whoa, if I went to Thailand, I want to smoke Thai. If I'm in Laos, I want to smoke Laos. If you sold me a fucking bag of white runts, I'd be pissed, because I can buy that in anywhere in America, but I can't buy Thai in America. And I grow it, but it's not Thai because I don't have the sun and the back. I don't have the combination to make it what it is. So it's an Americanized, bastardized, diminished form. And I know that because I got to fuck around with all these things in real time. So I know the difference. And that's really what's tough, is that we're all so busy trying to figure out how to sell weed that you're creating the square tomato so that it boxes easy, it ships easy. And what we're losing is this diversity, and we're losing the ability for each one of these places to have their own individual identity. And so same thing with Colombia. We're developing lines in Colombia, but there has to be hybrids that can be sold other places that desire American morphology. And then how do you develop the internal markets within the country to focus on what is their cultural smoke? So, like these conversations are huge, and there has to be, the farmers have to be able to get together and communicate so they can understand. Don't throw your population away to become a runts farmer, because when runts goes away, what do? You've lost your identity, and now you just basically your shill. You grab whatever the nursery sells and you grow it. And that shit, I'm telling people, I'm like, listen, they sell about 18 different plants in the fucking market. If you grow any of those, you're going out of business. You can't compete. And like Eric similar to me, where he and I both go to the largest operations in the United States. And then I go to ones out of the country that are fucking huge. It lets you get a really good idea of what your competition is and what they're doing. And I'm like, you can't compete with these guys because they can get the product to the table cheaper than you. You have to get out of their realm, and you have to go into things that they can't produce, won't produce. And the issue with that is, how do we market it? But the bottom line is, you can't go and chase large producers as a technique when you're not a large producer. That's where I love the idea of the Root Beer Chem Dog Special project, is that what it does, it allows a tremendous number of people that you brought together through the Regen Conference to be able to get access to a common breeding project. And over the course of a year or two, what you come out of with all those seeds is really the true outliers. And what you're doing is you're having people from around the US and hopefully global participate in this. So what you have is communication, participation, and movement of product that starts that chain of events to occur, where what you're doing is you're using many people to create things. Because I don't think any of us are so uniquely bright. We're limited. We know what we know, but outside of that, I don't know anything. But if I have 100 of us, we seem to have a far better picture on what to do and how to go forward, and how do we really go after the market in the way we need, so that the small farmer has some ability to survive, because nobody's living on $400 a pound. When in Cali, it's running you almost like, by the time you're done with tax and trimming, you're already at fucking 350, right? So you're in this range of cost that's a nickel below what you're going to sell it for. It's impossible. You can't do business like that, and it's killing the farmer globally. I don't care what country I'm in; it's the same issue.
Selling flour is the lowest price that you'll get for your product, and so making products from your flour,
value added.
And that's where hash and rosin come in, because that's a product at the end of the day. And then in some cases you can't make it, or maybe you don't want to because it's too much infrastructure and all that. But that's the idea of there's places in Ontario right now where their pounds are $25 a pound. And I was just talking to people out there, but the big up to the families out there that are doing hash and everything, because that still has value quite a bit.
And taking away the ability for the farmer to have a value added product with their own product, with their own produce, is ridiculous. It's like telling the tomato farmer, hey, you know what, tomato farmer,
stop
you can't make tomato sauce. When really, maybe for small tomato farmers, the only way that they can actually stay a small farmer, feed their family, pay their taxes, is to make a value added product. And I just think that it's, again, another restrictive policy that's put onto cannabis farmers, as if we're growing something other than produce or another crop. And I think that that's the stigma that needs to be lifted. And that's the direction that we all need to, move into, is, the ability for us to work with our sentient beings that we're talking about from the very beginning to the end. So if Kevin is growing something that he knows that what's being put out to the market is what he originally grew, what he intended to put out to the market, to consumers, that's incredibly important for farmers, because we want that essence, that energy of the good tasting, good nutritional tomato to be able to be shown to community in the way that you encompassed your energy and your intention into it.
And if you want to,
that's important with medicine, especially.
Take Thailand for example. Like if they started making products out of Thai spices and Thai roots, and the Ayurvedic Chinese medicine mashup that happens in Thailand, that you'd find incredible products coming out of there. Or let's say Yoruba in Nigeria, West Africa. There's really important roots and tonics that come from these areas. And to be able to compound medicine, even compounding cannabis is banned in some areas. So, the ability to compound cannabis with other products.
And what he means by compounding is literally just taking two herbs and putting them together. That's how restrictive this has gotten. Like, come on, silliness. They're trying to compare us putting spearmint into cannabis leaves for a smoking blend as to that of mixing two pharmaceutical drugs to go together. Come on. We have now created loops that we can no longer fit into. It is so stupid. Humans are ridiculous. We are always creating these systems that we can't even work in. So I think that if we've learned anything through these last 2 years, is we need to simplify and we need to humanize more things so that it makes it easier. The reason why they've complicated a system is so that we have to pay somebody else not only to translate it, but then to be able to carry out the work to do it. So what it does is it just takes us further and further away from the work and empowerment of us becoming, again, sovereign, independent beings. And this is where we need to move, not just in cannabis, not just in farming, but in every single occupant in the world.
I love that you're using that vocabulary. It's really strikes me, and I identify with it.
I agree.
I was just when we were talking about hash and stuff. It's like I would just really agree with the direct sale and the you taking it beyond hash, because right now in Washington, California is kind of almost like its own country in a way. You know, the cannabis industry can operate because it's so huge, but we only have like 600-700 farmer producers, processors, and there's a ton of folks in the hash game. Like everyone that used to be doing a small home grow convinced the guy who was having a hard time to let him, spend 10 grand and put up a hash lab. And so we have in the market, we have really high quality rosin, especially, hash rosin available, for $60, $50 a gram. That's pretty decent stuff, all the way up to $75 a gram. And if you're in that $60 range, $65 range, it's sub $800 a pound to the farmer is my point. When you break it down, it's not much, and you have to have that expensive lab. You have to do this extra thing. You know what I mean? And you have to still package it and put it all out into 1 gram units. And I've really delved into it this year. I used to make a lot of hash back in the medical days, and I took a break from it, and then I hopped back in this year. And so I broke down the economics, and I have a friend who owns a store here, and he's really cool, and he'll sell anything I give him. But when I start working through the volume that I have to do, it's just kind of like a non-starter. I just keep coming back to, like, I need to reduce this down to a real neighborhood nursery, that people can come by, my neighbors can come by, and they can buy some clones, some seedlings, a couple ounces of herb, maybe some honey, infused honey, like these basic products that I'm, salve, these things that I'm already doing that are just simple healing things. And it can be like once a month or whatever, like a couple people I'm cool enough that I'll let them drop by, whenever, just how we would normally do it. That's.
I wanted to big up LOS Gardens out in Ontario, Sean and Subsidium Secreto and the crew that came together. They won an award, off of sun-grown medicine, sun-grown rosin recently in Toronto. That was a big, beautiful thing. And they're all working on out there. There's a lot of people that we're working in the DEM Pure network that are creating like that farm gate, food network, even conscious meats, regenerative meat growing, and in some cases, in some places in the world, you can't even get like, say, meat or raw milk, so to be able to provide that for the community is also a microbial rich entity that, you'd like to get into your body. So yeah, mix and matching the food sovereignty along with the medicine sovereignty is important, and it is happening, in different parts of the world. So yeah, give thanks to the people that are creating networks in their area to provide their community with intentional products, because processed food is not very good for us, and processed medicine is not the best for us as well.
I don't know. That's I amen. I don't know where we're at. We've been going for a while, 2.5 hours. Nice. Are you talking, Josh?
Nice to listen to. Go ahead, Josh.
No, but anyway, that's the spirit of the regenerative conference and everyone coming together, is that you're highlighting each bioregion and what they can do. You know, and on this panel right now, you already have people in every different area. And in Canada, we can't make new licenses. You know, that's just not the way the law works. But I mean, we can make a new license, but we can't alter the licenses that are there currently. So if that's the kind of work that we're looking and moving forward, is, hey, can we create a new addendum to the laws?
Additions to the laws.
Because in Canada is a good representation of the world. This is a federally legalized country. And how does regenerative farming and lifestyles fit into that federal legalized, you know, markup? And at this moment, it really doesn't. It doesn't match up.
And I just sort of wanted to remind everybody out there that Health Canada is what, you know, handles our license here in Canada. And that's like our health and medical system. That is not our agricultural system. Look, Canada Ag has nothing to do with cannabis. So that can really tell you the wormholes of where cannabis is going, which is pharmaceutical, drug involved, because that's what they know. They're going with what it is that they know. But, you know, you can see how incredibly detrimental this is, that Canada, being one of the main big countries that's federally legalized cannabis, has taken it into a federally legalized faction of the pharmaceutical trickle down, if you will. And I just think that that's the wrong way to go if we're talking about small farmers. So for us to be able to have a conversation with the government of Canada and say, hey, there's a whole other faction of cannabis that's going on that isn't just pharmaceutical grade, that isn't just talking about drug mixing and isolation and compounding in compounding isolates. We're talking about farming and this being used as a product that small farmers can have in addition to their multi-crop, their multi-products on their properties. So, you know, I think that these conversations are incredibly important, and especially Canada, because if we're able to get Canada to make that movement, then the rest of the world looks at it. Oh yeah, hey, there is a small area for farmers to be able to bring up different parts of, you know, maybe what they're trying to accomplish in the federal government, which is basically they're not even making any money in cannabis, and at least in the way that they wanted to. All of the promises that these big corporate entities made with Health Canada, they're not necessarily getting that percentage back that was promised out to them. So even that's not working.
But there's still a network there. We're thankful that Canada has federally legalized.
Absolutely. There's a lot to work with.
It opens a door. There are intentional businesses out there coming online. There is good medicine. I know Marcus knows and works with a lot of them. Whistler Technologies works with a lot of
more and more.
A lot of them. And I know a lot of regenerative farmers that are entering the licensed producer market here in Canada that are continuing to lobby every day for certain ingredients, even nettles, you know, like they have to lobby to put nettles in their soil, you know, and so it becomes really crazy when you're talking about like sacred herbalist regenerative farming, and then you look at the actual system you're trying to work with and you're like, oh shit, they have
and then they create a hoop that's this big, and then only the isolated forms of ourselves can jump through it. Sorry, maybe too soon.
But we're thankful. But there's a lot to be thankful for.
I mean, it's the same thing. Like, you know, when I put that post up there, there's a handful of folks that are like, yeah, but this type of person can, you know, take advantage of it, or this type of, you know, and I'm like, you know what? It's one step at a time. I've literally had a recreational license for 9 years, you know, and it's one step at a time. And like, I've been saying I need this thing for 9 years. Like, I used to sell direct tomatoes and all my products in Minnesota. And I used to walk into chefs and with food and be like, buy it. And they'd buy it for top dollar. And it's not what I can do right now. So like, I don't know, I'll just go off on it. But like,
And the reason why that's so important is not only is it supporting the small farmer, but it's supporting the nutrient dense, fresh food that you have to offer right at that time. These terpenes of what the farmer has created off their farm and the way that they want to cure it is very different in the end, which is exactly very different than, you know, dare I say, a rotten tomato. So much of the fresh flowers or the products that people are putting out creates a certain type of entourage medicine. And then when it's on the shelves, it's not treated properly, or it's gone through another process, or darn, if it's even contaminated with another farm that isn't using organic things at the very least, it can cause so many problems. And to me, that's really just the same as going to a market with a bunch of rotten tomatoes and saying, this is what I have to offer the market. It isn't representative of the small farmer, and it is only harming us to be able to have value in, you know, the history, I mean, into the future of what small farming should even have capabilities to do. And how dare. Exactly.
You know, it's impressive to shout up.
What about the tomato? Nobody talks about the poor tomato that's not.
Dude, I honestly will not eat tomatoes that are store bought. Like even we shop at the co-op and they have good food, and I know most of the farmers, but the tomatoes that they have to grow for them to sit for a week don't fucking jive with my mouth. Like that's I don't funny. Fucking want them. You know, I'll only buy the stuff at the farmer's market or grow my own. You know, and I basically don't eat tomatoes unless I've grown, because up here, folks, you know, they have all sorts of greenhouses.
And how many of us would say that as cultivators of cannabis? We really only smoke what's super close to us and ingest what's super close to us because we know it. We know it. It has the value. It has the flavor that we're all looking for. Even for us to want to smoke somebody else's product, you know, it's to me the same as that tomato that even though it may be good, it's been on the shelf for a really long time to finally get to the consumer. So we need to have a lot of compassion for consumers in the cannabis market, especially in Canada, not receiving what it is that the producers or the cultivators even wanted to put out.
And to shout up the tomato a little bit, our friends at Peace Seedlings grew 200 different strains of tomatoes. So wow,
seedlings
200. peaceseedlings.blogspot.com. You can find incredible food seeds.
And they've been growing 200 different varietals of tomatoes for about 40 years.
Along with incredible flower varietals.
Where's their farm?
Corvallis.
Nice. I'll definitely check it out. Yeah.
And their father, Alan Capular, we had on Hash Church one time. He's a genetic biologist in his 70s, and Peace Seeds was his company, and his kids run Peace Seedlings. So everyone should know about Alan Capular and Peace
just
Seeds.
As if we're talking about all these incredible varietals of cannabis because we can, because it's still here, because it's still relevant to consumers. You know, fast forward us talking about, 70 different varietals of broccoli, we would lose all of the people who are listening right now. And they're just the same as if 20 years down the road, we're talking about all these different varietals that have now been CRISPR technology in Israel right now, that they're going to put out 4 different varietals of cannabis, where all of these 70 different varietals that we're talking about right now have no value in people's minds. They have no idea what we're talking about, but yet this is what's going to bring us to the future. So that's why it's so important that we continue to bring this forward, because we know the degradation that has happened to the food industry for us to only have 4 different varietals of broccoli.
And we don't believe in editing the genome of foods through CRISPR technology. We believe in bigging up the genome through regenerative polyculture seed saving, and that's our future. Our future is in the unknown, the soil microbiome, and how endophytic bacteria and fungi store themselves in seeds to create a new plant the following year.
And yes, we do believe that it's a short track to health and well-being of the cannabis plant in the same way that antibiotics is a short track to the health and well-being of our microbiology. I said it, I'm sorry. I know that humans love to go down these long roads of science, but when we start CRISPR technology, all of the varietals that have taken our ancestry thousands of years to get here, and we just maybe ruin it with some great idea that the human has, when we really have no idea what's going to happen to the future of those seeds. So even though we can look into, a very small picture of what this may do, it's awesome to have questions about it. But what we continue seeing is that those questions now are taking over industry right, left, and center. It's not just, oh, let us question because we have these ideas, but when it then takes over an entire industry, then you realize it's not just us questioning it, the how, what, and why, because we are curious. It's because it's there to take over the world. And we really need to see that that is happening.
Earlier, I was going to pop in and say, there's kind of a thing, there's folks will kind of judge you on Instagram or social media if there's a breeder that's taking an F2ing or F3ing or F4ing someone else's thing, and you hear people talk down on it, and it's like, I really don't hold that belief whatsoever. I think there's significant value. I was going to say it when Nick was on, to taking something, if you think it's really cool and it worked really well for you, or you have potential for it, to take it down those lines and hold it and remake it year after year, because in my experience, it takes 2 or 3 seasons or grows for a genetic to really jive with the biology, and that's true of human beings too. And when we move into different environments, different places, it takes, people get sick often, in the first while. It takes their biome, especially if you drastically move to a different part of the world, you could really fuck you up. So it's just to consider, to not to get rid of that machismo thing or whatever the fuck it is, and make seeds, and that's why I appreciate hearing about peace seedlings, because I've always bought from Uprising Seeds here in Bellingham area, and they grow only open pollinated seeds, and I've been growing those seeds for so many years I can't remember, making the umpteenth generations, and it's something of significant value to me, because it's embodied with not only within me and the food tastes good to me, but it does well in my environment, and it's something that I can pass on, that I've maybe improved this just for this region and just for this technique. That's enough, or kept it alive and kept it around. Go ahead, Josh.
I also agree that it's climatizing, to an area. So it's not to say that, you shouldn't grow someone else's seeds. Of course you should, because that's the whole entire point of making seeds. You can say, hey, the origins of this came from Pacific Northwest roots, Ross Kaya Paul, or Nick, or, whoever it came from. And then that's nice, because then
it's being gracious.
Then you're giving,
to our
little,
small farmers.
Maybe it's Kevin Jodry, or whatever. And then you can continue, the representation of where it came from. But being able to climatize the seed, like you said, is really powerful, and it makes it, even taste a little different for the zone. And that gives a zone value. I think Kevin brings that up a lot. You got to find value, and value is not homogenization. Value is uniqueness, and climatization brings on the uniqueness of any given flavor. So yes, we encourage anyone to always grow out the seeds, and of course, do something with them if you feel called to it. That's a beautiful thing. So that's why seed swaps are powerful.
And that's part of us as human beings sifting through these seeds to create incredibly beautiful varietals, in the same way that a lot of these scientists with this CRISPR technology are trying to create something. So our ability as community to breathe through some really fire genetics that may have, a lot of tendencies towards powdery mildew or other leaf-eating fungi. If we continue to trade them and we put them in different areas and regions, then we're going to find an area in a region and a farmer that grows it out really well to be able to keep that, varietal present. Because just like you were saying, Joshua, like nobody's talking about the tomato. We need to talk about the plant as an entity too. A lot of us are talking about the manipulation of the plant and all of the different varietals that we can create with the plant, but we need to always pull up a chair for the plant, that the plant is what's important and moving forward. And if we can highlight all of her potentialities in the medicine that we ingest, then all we're doing is doing her a favor, and we're true stewards of the plant. And that's what we really need to be doing, and being true stewards of every single seed that we create, because that's completing the whole cycle of what regeneration even means.
The other thing I wanted to add to the regenerative talk too was I learned more the first year, and was it 2018 was the first year of the Regen conference, Josh? I learned more at that first meeting in Portland than I did in probably the previous 5 to 10 years of going to other cannabis and agricultural conventions and listening to talks. It was just this wholly different level, and people are hanging out at dinner, talking science, talking, all these different methodologies. It's a completely different kind of experience than any other kind of conference you're going to go to. And you'll learn more about more different things that you didn't know exist that'll help you have insight into why your plants are doing that weird thing that you can't quite figure out, or why you're, X, Y, and Z. And it certainly will open a whole lot of new doors for you and help you figure out some stuff that you were struggling with before, for sure.
There's been a lot of folks that came to the first couple of years that are now like in career, consultants running big grows when they first came in. Not that they got all their education, obviously, in a weekend, but the connections and the kind of lead off and the base really does lead, like, I think if I was going to advise someone that was 20, whatever, trying to figure out, I want to be in the career, I'd say hit the Gangia, hit all the regen conferences, try to figure out how to get Dampier certified, and fucking, you'll have all that you need right there to go figure it out,
Hey, I got to split, guys. My human seed is demanding some attention. So I want to say thanks, Marcus, for letting me be on your platform, and I appreciate you, Josh, for inviting me on to speak. And it's like I said, it's always an honor to hang out with all of you. You're all wonderful people, and it's just a blessing to be part of your crew. So thank you so much, and I look forward to seeing you all a couple weeks in Humboldt. And I'll bring you an ounce of OG, Eric. I got some killer OG. You're gonna love that shit.
Save me a fucking eighth of that, man.
I will. I'll bring you a second. I got plenty. I know. It's California, man. You grow your 6. I grew 6 big ones. All right, you guys be cool.
That's how you leave a Zoom conference right there. I got your bag of OG Kush, by the way. Thank you, everybody.
Got you, baby.
Good to have you, Kevin.
A pleasure, my brother. We'll be on.
Well, right on. Where are we at? I'm kind of. I've truth be told, I have family duties too. I've had a long week and got a long week of shows actually to try to promote this conference. So I'm going to be at a lot of stuff. We're at 3 hours. We want to keep going. I'm down. Man. Do we want to kind of wrap it up? Where are we at?
We got to get rolling. We got a whole bunch of stuff going on. And, of course, it's always an incredible honor to see all of you, your faces that I haven't seen in so long. I just want to hug you big and for a long time, and share a nice circle with you all and laugh until we can't laugh anymore, which is what we always all do when we're in person. So I'm really looking forward to those times. And thanks again, Marcus. You continue to host these things. It's just, it's everything. It's everything. It truly is. If we're not sharing like this, then it's all meaningless. So it gives meaning to everything that we do. And I just appreciate you for continuously giving meaning to everything that we do and everything that we are. And Joshua, thanks, same thing. And Potent Ponix, Trix, love you. Brian,
Say hey to the Helios guys.
Eric, everything. You guys all in season, you all give meaning to what it is that we all do. And when we come and we talk about it, it makes us get more energy for going out and doing and being better people, being better representations for this plant, which is really what this is all about. The more that we can dress her up and put her into better circles with a more refined voice, and the more doors that we can push her through, and the more conversations that people want to have about this plant and want to ingest it, we just know that it's going to be a better world for humanity. So I just appreciate you guys to the nth of whatever that means. So much love. Thanks.
You guys, thank you for coming on. You will be big time missed at the conferences. And should anything come up at the last minute, you're welcome to come crash our party. Please do. We don't know. Anything could happen in this world. Maybe we'll have a tunnel.
Set up a projector and invite them on Zoom. That's what someone suggested in the chat. They should make an appearance.
Yeah, we can definitely try to do that at Humboldt. Is impossible, but maybe we can do it at the other ones and try to get you guys in. And if you're down and we can make that happen, that would be great. Actually, I had thought about that earlier. I was going to bring it up.
Awesome.
Yeah,
Awesome.
They haven't mandated astral travel yet, so we still have that.
So we're still astral traveling almost every day. So we look forward to seeing you all in that space.
Well, thank you very much, everybody, for tuning in, and thanks to all the Eric and Steve and Dragonfly and Season and Brian and I should have added to my list, if you really want education in the cannabis industry, start episode 1, season 1, Hash Church, and I have learned a ton from watching these things. I've learned a ton from all the panelists. It is the highest class show in terms of education, and that I've been around in the industry, hands down. Marcus, you've done an awesome service to the world in this, and really appreciate you giving space for the thing that we do, and really gracious, man. Really.
Thanks for the kind words, brother. Always happy to play my part. It was great to listen today. Steve was helping me in the background with some sort of Zoom co-hosting thing. So we're going to be able to figure out maybe so Hash Church doesn't have to change links when it goes live. It's going to help me figure that out. So shout out to him for that. And yeah, thank you guys for, doing this today on here. It was really, really nice to listen to everyone. It was neat to hear a group of people who seemingly, have this great information and knowledge, but even some of the things, like when Kevin spoke and what he spoke about and how honest he was about how he spoke it. And then Nicholas, really kind of quite different. It was nice to see people not necessarily agreeing, but sharing different points of perspective without like getting on one another and just staying true to the topics. It was really refreshing. I appreciated it.
It's something that we've strived for, and because there can be a lot of little micro nitpicky stuff within subcultures, and even in our conference there's conflict between KNF and Soil Food Web, but we really just do a good job of talking it through, and I think we'll kind of move past that at this point. But that was a thing there for it's things like that, and I just really appreciate all the speakers, even just willing to hold space with each other and learn from each other, and that's been one of the biggest blessings, is being able to take everybody out to dinner afterwards and just drink a beer and listen to people learn from each other, and discuss. And there's contradictions and understanding, and it's been powerful how we kind of figure it out together. I know for sure every speaker has changed their vocabulary and their understanding from those meetings, and it's been really powerful. So.
Awesome. Well, if that's it, thanks everybody. And I guess I'll stop the recording and shut down YouTube. And Potent Ponics, hit me up. You need to finish off helping me. Not this minute by any means, but eventually. Thanks everybody. Thanks Joshua. I can't wait to hopefully become a part of another regenerative conference here in Canada one day soon, when this COVID-19 shit is done.
Peace, everybody.
Nice to see the tomatoes show up today. Have a great day, everyone. Love you.
Peace,
Love
brother.
you guys.
Yeah, thanks again.
Everybody.